Hi, everyone. Welcome to NiceGamLii Chanel. If you find this content interesting or helpful, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any new videos. Your support means so much to me, and it helps me create even better content. Thank you so much. My girlfriend knew that the poison could only be cured with, but she was willing to give the life-saving medicine to. She only asked that I accompany her through her. After being and facing this choice again, I unhesitatingly took the life-saving. Yun Meng Yao looked sadly at the surveillance. She felt an emptiness in her heart. She knew it was a dream, but she didn't expect it to be. It turned out that the man had gone still for that herb, but Luyan had said it was for her. Now he was still indirectly going to take it himself. Was she that untrustworthy? Even though she already knew he would do. Why did her chest still hurt so much? The moment I retrieved the herb, Yun Mengyao immediately turned off the serve. She hugged her knee, curling her body and covering her eyes. Her assistant, Zhang Ting, timidly asked, "Miss, should I go and bring him back?" Yun Mengyao's tone turned, "No need. Have everyone withdraw. Let him go." Zhang Ting sighed and complied. After I got the herb, I went straight, unaware of what had happened upstairs. I only felt that the atmosphere on the first. An hour passed as I prepared the When I carried the medicine upstairs, I ran into Zhang Ting coming down. Seeing me, Zhang Ting seemed, "Why haven't you left yet?" I frowned, puzzled. "Leave? I'm staying here tonight, aren't I?" Zhang Ting's brow twitched, his gaze falling on the bowl in my hand. He couldn't help but ask, "What?" I looked at him and said plainly, "Medicine for your young lady. If it cools down, it won't be as effective." Zhang Ting stared at me serious. "For my young lady. Is she sick?" I paused, realizing that Yun Mengyao's was unknown even to her. Thinking of this, I gave Zhang Ting a sympathetic glance. "It has nothing to go back to sleep." Zhang Ting felt a wave of emotional damage. How could Mrs. Matters have nothing to do with me? I ignored her and continued, walking straight to Yun Mengyao's door. I raised my hand and knocked. At that moment, Yun Mengyao was curled up in the corner. She felt as though she was being swallowed by dark. Hearing the knock, she felt a flicker of irritation. I told everyone not to disturb. Hearing the voice from Zhang Ting's communicator, I paused, wondering what was going on. Zhang Ting opened her mouth, unsure of what to say. "Does Miss think you took the medicine and ran? So now she locked herself in?" She couldn't explain it. She simply left it for me to. With that in mind, she knocked harder on the door. "Mr. Liu is here." Within 3 seconds, the door clicked open. Yun Mengyao stared blankly at me from the doorway. "You?" Her gaze fell on the bowl in my hand. "What is this?" I looked at her helplessly. "Let me in first. If we delay any longer, it'll cool down." Yun Mengyao stepped aside to let me. I walked to the table by the bed, and I intended to tell you earlier, but you didn't answer when I knocked. I thought you were asleep, so I went ahead and prepared the medicine. I held the bowl out to her. "Drink the medicine." Yun Mengyao didn't take it. She kept staring at me stubborn. For me, I was confused. Who else? Yun Mengyao felt as though she was on an emotional. The despair she felt earlier was gradually lifting. However, she quickly realized another problem. "How did you know I needed this medicine? Could Mr. Liu have prepared? He must have known about the poisoning. But I hadn't even told Zhang Ting. How did he find out?" I lied effortlessly, without hesitation. "Don't you know I'm a doctor of—" "When I held your wrist earlier, I diagnosed it immediately. Now drink the medicine. If it cools down, it won't be a—" Yun Mengyao still didn't take the bowl. Thinking, she felt as though she had grasped. "Is it because of this that you suddenly changed your attitude?" Her keen observation instantly brought her mood, which had just lifted, so he only helped her because he owed her a favor. I looked puzzled. "What are you talking about?" "Yunmeng, if I drink this medicine and the poison is will you feel no burden anymore and completely sever ties with—" I was baffled. I never thought that my casual lie would lead to such For a moment, I found it both frustrating. If I wanted to sever ties with you, I'd just hand you the medicine. Why would I promise to stay by your side? Yun Mengyao, do you not trust me, or do you lack confidence in your— Yun Mengyao let out a bitter, with a hint of, "You're the only one in this world who makes me lose." All her life, she had been a proud but with me, she stumbled repeat. She even found herself jealous, who in every way was far inferior to her. Because that person had almost all of my attention. This time, I remained silent. Then, without further explanation, I calmly handed the medicine to her again. "The medicine is already— It's not the formula for Sulinye's mother. If you don't drink it, it'll—" This time, Yun Mengyao didn't refuse, but her heart was still clouded with gloom. She believed my change of topic and the way I said felt almost like a death sentence to her. If this is what Luyan wanted, she wouldn't let herself become a burden to— She gulped down the herbal medicine, instinctively furrowed. Meanwhile, I smiled with amusement. "Bitter." Yun Mengyao wiped her lips. "Not too bad. Blame me for not preparing sugar." Yun Mengyao chuckled. "No need. I'm not a child." In that moment, Yun Mengyao saw that what I just said didn't sound like something Luyan— And if he wanted to leave her, he wouldn't go to such lengths. Before she could look up to confirm, a shadow loomed over her. I leaned closer, cupped her face with my hands. Let me share your. Then I kissed her. Yun Mengyao's pupils shrank tightly. All her tension seemed to dissolve. The warmth of the kiss surged through. An intimate atmosphere filled the room. The kiss stirred emotions in both of us. Before long, we both fell onto the soft bed. I regained a bit of composure. You just lie down and rest. Yun Mengyao's gaze was still filled with lingering desire as she looked at me obsessively. I gave you the chance to leave, but you came back yourself. If I had never had you, I would rather hurt myself than let. I frowned slightly, but now that she had me, she would never let go. Whether or not Luyan loved her, she would never let him leave her side. As Yun Mengyao leaned closer to me, I gently pressed her shoulders, pulled the blanket over her, then sat on the chair by the bed. Looking at her, I softly said, "Be good, rest well. Your body will recover faster." Yun Mengyao's beautiful eyes gazed, her red lips trembling as she, and at that moment, so tired that I didn't even have the strength to open, so I didn't hear clearly what he said. I also missed the obsessive possessiveness in his, and the madness. The next morning, when I opened my eyes, I saw Yun Mengyao staring at me intensely. His eyes had a faint grayish hue. My heart skipped a beat as I quickly, after confirming the poison was I finally felt relieved. Then another thought struck me. Could he have stayed awake watching me all night? Thinking this, I couldn't help but ask. Yun Mengyao remained silent for a long. I was scared. Scared this was just a dream. Scared that once I woke up, everything. Inwardly, I sighed softly. I will never leave you. Yun Mengyao's heart trembled as he raised his hand. You said this. I nodded yes. After speaking, I patted his arm. Let go first. I need to get up. But instead of letting go, where are you going? I raised my. Was it my imagination? Yun Mengyao seems even more clingy. Of course I'm going to the office. You know how busy I am in this. Yun Mengyao hesitated slightly, but didn't speak. I quickly noticed anger suddenly flared in my heart. I almost forgot Su Linyan was hearing this. Don't go, he said, panicking. Seeing this, I smiled. If I don't, how can I fire her? Yun Mengyao froze. I repeated slowly, you heard it right. I said I'm going to drive. Do you have any objection? Yun Mengyao felt as if he was still. After eating, Yun Mengyao felt like he might still be. After finishing breakfast, Yun Mengyao, who was about to follow him, was forcibly pushed back. Leaving Yun Mengyao's place, I walked straight to a Maybach parked by the roadside. My assistant Shen Bingbing saw and immediately got out of the drive, skillfully opening the rear car door. President Liu, she greeted. I nodded and got on the way to the company. Shen Bingbing kept glancing at me through the rearview mirror as if she wanted to say something, even as I closed my eyes to rest her burning gaze. If you have something to ask, Shen Bingbing chuckled softly. Your private matters are not for subordinates, but if you wish to share, as your I'm all ears. I chuckled softly. Had I been too lean? What kind of assistant jokes with their boss like this? But I felt there was no need to hide. I broke up with Su. My current girlfriend is Yun Mengyao. Just take note when you meet her. Although she had already suspected, hearing it still surprised Shen Bingbing. But then she smiled. Her eyes filled with genuine congratulations, President Liu. May I say something if I may? During the evening traffic peak, Shen Bingbing stepped on the brakes, her mood visibly lighter. Knowing the boss had found new love, her words carried no hesitation. To be honest, I always felt Director Su wasn't. I never understood why you while ignoring Yun Mengyao, who is far superior and so deeply devoted to you. But it's good that you've changed your. It's not too late for everything to start over. Not too late, huh? But we've already missed a life. If I hadn't been reborn, but we completely missed a lifetime. If I hadn't been reborn, it would be just as Yun Mengyao said. We wouldn't have another chance to meet in the next. As for why I chose Su Linyan before, it wasn't because I ignored a woman I admired in every aspect and chose someone who was inferior to Yun Mengyao. And the reason was Su Linyan and I had pledged our love in a past, and we even died for each other. When I was reborn into the modern world, I couldn't not seek her out, nor could I give other women a chance. After all, loyalty to love is in my name. But after finding Su Linyan in this, I didn't mind her difficult circumstances. I even believing her lack of memory. I brought her into my company, promoted her to the second-in-command position, and even helped her return as an illegitimate daughter. I managed the family business tirelessly only to end up betrayed. Thinking about the 3 lifetimes and undying love we made when we died together, it feels like a joke now. As I watched the scenery flying past outside, I felt a sliver of anticipation. Su Linyan, for the debts of the past, I'll make sure to collect them this time. Upon arriving I ignored the greetings of the employees as I towards the president's private. While pressing the top floor button, I ordered, call a meeting with all the company. In half an hour, we'll meet in the main con. Also, check if Su Linyan has arrived. If she hasn't, call her. Even if she's in the hospital getting an eye, she has to be here. Shen Bingbing nodded in response, but couldn't help feeling curious. Director Su is in the hospital? Combining this with the fact that the boss, she felt like she'd stumbled upon something. After arriving at I opened my computer and retrieved a document to print out. I placed it in a folder. Flipping through the evidence recorded on the A4, a cold smile appeared in my eyes. The first step of revenge was, of course, to kick Su Linyan out, trying to step on me to climb, using my assets as capital to return to her. She should first see if I'll give her the. Just as I was thinking this, there was a knock on the office. I picked up the folder and opened the door. I saw Su Linyan standing outside, looking angry. Luyan, I finally found you. What happened last night? Aunt Lee told me you didn't come home all night. Were you at Yun Mengyao's place the whole time? Her tone grew increasingly agitated as she spoke. I didn't answer her question. Instead, I glanced at her hand, thickly wrapped in white band. How's your hand? I asked. At the mention of her hand, a shadow crossed Su Linyan's eye. But upon hearing my concern, she immediately tried to play the emotional. The doctor said I should stay in the hospital, but I couldn't stop worrying about you, so I just had it simply bandaged. You know medicine too, right? Can you check if it's properly treated? I bypassed her directly and walked toward the elevator. Su Linyan followed beside me. Knowing her true nature now, I couldn't even stand being in the same enclosed. It made me feel uncomfortable. The meeting room floor wasn't far from the top. Before Su Linyan could probe further, the elevator stopped with a ding. After stepping out, I took a deep breath of fresh air and headed straight to the conference room. Shen Bingbing was standing by and opened it for me. President Liu, everyone is here. Su Linyan glanced at Shen Bingbing and, not knowing why, but feeling that her gaze seemed a bit unusual. Shen Bingbing pretended not, holding the documents she'd just collected and followed. As I walked into the room, under the gaze, I calmly walked towards I sat down in the with a loud snap. A folder was thrown onto the meeting room table. It caught the attention of all the senior. I leaned on the chair's backrest. I said that today's meeting was called to announce adjustments and changes. After saying this, to look at Su Linyan, who had just sat down. During her tenure, Director had repeatedly misused company funds for personal, severely harming the company's interest. After thorough consideration, it has been decided to terminate her labor. After saying this, and once again looked at the dumbfounded Director Su, will you resign voluntarily or wait for the company? As soon as I finished, the meeting room fell silent. Not only did Su Linyan look dazed, but the other executives were also stunned, as if they couldn't believe what they were hearing. The first thought of everyone was that it was just. Some found it amusing, while others tried to mediate. President Liu, isn't this punishment a bit too harsh? Although Director Su she also has contributed. Under her leadership, this has been steadily improving. And besides the misused funds issue, Director Su has returned the money. Can't we consider a different I looked at the speaker. It seems Su Linyan is indeed in less than a year at the company, she managed to win over executives to speak on her behalf. Director Zhao, are you saying that all the sales department's achievements and that breaking the law by misusing funds can be easily over? No, that's not what I meant. Sweat formed on Zhao Yuan's, but under Su Linyan's pleading gaze, he had no choice but to continue. President Liu and Director Su's is something we all know well. Everyone knows that small quarrels are common between. I just worry that if you take it, it might end badly. I gave a cold laugh. Should I thank you for your— No need. Yuan Jinchuan waved his— Though nervous, he still wanted to persuade me. But Director Yuan, am I the president? Or are you the president? Yuan Jinchuan instantly backed it, casting a helpless look at Su Linyan. Su Linyan cursed him internally and could only pin her hopes on me. Muyan, I want to talk to you privately. I didn't refuse. If it weren't for the fact that senior decisions and appropriate feedback, I wouldn't have bothered with this process. After dismissing the senior exec, Su Linyan immediately stood up. Leaning forward, she accentuated her graceful curve. She used her finger to lift my chin, her sultry voice tinged with seduction. Muyan, I need an explanation. I chuckled lightly. Embezzling company funds and leaving. Su Linyan glared at me. You know that's not what I meant. And if you're angry about that, you wouldn't have waited until now. You certainly wouldn't have personally covered I could no longer maintain the smile on my face. Was he reminded? Do you really want to know the reason? I folded my arms and leaned back in my chair, looking at Su Linyan with, when I loved you, I could put you on a pet, but when I stop, who do you think you are? Su Linyan clenched her fists, her chest heaving with emotion. Muyan, you were the one who pursued. And now you say you don't love me anymore? Yun Mengyao. My face turned impatient. That's none of your— And stop acting like it's none of your business. And stop acting like you're the victim. Do you truly love me? Or did you just see me as a tool to return? I think you know better than anyone else. Su Linyan, I have never wronged you in the slightest. But what you owe me, you'll never be able to repay. Su Linyan looked a bit guilty, but my last sentence suggested there was even more. Just as she was about to speak, I pushed her. Go submit your resignation, and don't make me repeat myself. After saying that, I walked out. The dismissed executives, thinking the couple would resolve their issues privately, thought everything would soon blow. But instead, they saw carrying her belongings, leaving the company. Rumors quickly spread throughout the company. Meanwhile, when Yun Mengyao woke up, she saw a woman in a white coat, standing with her back turned, talking. "Miss, you're awake," Jiang Ting said. As soon as she saw Yun Mengyao open her eye, Yun Qingyue, munching on sunflower, sat down by the bed and reached out to check. "The poison has been cleared. But honestly, you wanted to give the medicine to someone else? What made you change your mind?" Before Yun Mengyao could speak, Jiang Ting explained, "To prepare the medicine for Miss Yun. And Mr. Lu is now with my." Recalling the sympathetic gaze, Jiang Ting felt a pang of grievance. "Miss, you were poisoned. Do you not trust? Who poisoned you?" Yun Mengyao ignored him and instead looked at Yun Qingyue. "Do you think I wanted to come?" "I came because I was worried about you," Yun Qingyue said. Then she asked, "That guy, wasn't his heart completely set on Su Lingyan?" She then asked, "That guy, wasn't his heart completely set on Su Lingyan? Why is he suddenly so good to you, even choosing to be with you? Don't you suspect he has some ulterior motive?" In Yun Mengyao's eye, there was a look of desperate, "Even if he has ulterior motives, so whatever he wants, including my life." Yun Qingyue couldn't help but curse. "Are you crazy? Always talking. Is your life that worthless?" Jiang Ting quickly offered a cup of tea and diligently massaged Yun Qingyue, thinking, other than my Miss Yun's cousin, who else among her peers would dare to speak to her like? Yun Qingyue drank the tea but didn't seem. After a few more sips, she placed the cup on the table, adjusted her posture, and said, "All right, since you're fine, there's a lot waiting for me in the lab. I'm leaving. No need to." Although Yun Qingyue said no need, Jiang Ting still arranged for someone to escort her to the. After Yun Mengyao got up, she looked at the now empty and suddenly felt unsettled. Clearly, Lu Yan had only stayed there for one. Thinking about this, she glanced at Jiang Ting. "Prepare the car. I'm going to pick up." She hesitated before continuing. "Pick up my boy." After receiving Su Lingyan's resignation letter, I rearranged some staff positions and then, as usual, sat in my office handling work matters. When it was time to leave, I massaged my temples and glanced at my phone. It was flooded with calls and messages from Su Ling. Without even reading them, I deleted everything. As soon as I stepped out of the company building, I ran into Su Lingyan's Suze approaching me direct. As a public figure, Suze was fully disguised, wrapped up tightly enough that Eve might not recognize him. But I recognized him immediately. Su Lingyan had misused company. It's all about pushing Suze's attempting to make him famous as his second capital to return to the Su. After all, the Su family in the Imperial, having a popular star as a son, even if he's an illegitimate child, could still be appealing to the Su family patriarch. Suze stepped forward and grabbed my brother. "Why didn't you answer when I called you? What happened between you and why are you making her resign?" Yu Mengyao, who was about to get out of the car when paused after hearing Suze's word. Her hand on the car door. In the driver's seat, Jiang Ting turned back. "Miss, did you hear that? Mr. Lu fired Su Lingyan. It seems he really wants to be with you." He said this while glancing at the only to find that Yu Mengyao's expression wasn't particular. Indeed, Yu Mengyao wasn't as smug as Jiang Ting. After all, she had known about Su Lin, but hearing brother-in-law, I don't know why, but someone. He directly shook off Suze's hand. "You already know. He resigned. Don't you know? Didn't he tell you?" Suze was taken aback. "He found this version of me, but wasn't it all something you tapped? My sister has worked hard for both with contributions and sacrifice. How can you dismiss her? And wasn't the injury on her hand? In the past, you were so worried. This time, with such a serious injury, you don't feel sorry. Fine. But how can you quarrel with her?" Suze's words were full of accusation, as if all the fault lay with me. I immediately interrupted him. "What I do is none of your business. If you feel it's unfair, move us. Don't make me say it a second time." Suze's confidence faltered. Suze was momentarily. I glanced sideways at him and frowned. "Who's your brother-in-law?" "Su Lingyan and I have broken up." "Don't call me that anymore. My girlfriend might misunderstand." Hearing this, not only was Suze, but the surrounding employees also widened their eye. They had guessed something about their. "But now I have a new girlfriend?" The senior executives couldn't help but feel Su Lingyan just left. And now there's another one? Because of my high status, everyone instinctively felt that dating me. At this moment, a collective gasp. "Who is that? She's so beautiful. Is she a celebrity? I've never seen her before." "I've seen her before. She's been to our company." As the murmurs grew louder, everyone turned their gaze to the approaching Yun Mengyao. Their faces were full of. Why would the eldest daughter of the Yun family? Was it to discuss a collaboration? But why at this hour? As they pondered this, Yun Mengyao walked up to me and stood beside me. Smiling, she looked at me and said, "Shall we? I'm here to take you home." Seeing this, the employees on site widened their eyes even further. A bold speculation surfaced in everyone's minds, but no one dared to ask. Suze, who had been rendered speechless, finally regained his composure. His expression was filled with Are you two together? The first time Suze saw Yun Mengyao, he was struck by her beauty. She was stunning and came from a Suze even wondered if Luyan had lost his mind. How could he not be interested in, but instead be so devoted? Yet seeing this scene before him, he found it unbearably glaring. I ignored Suze. To be precise, since Yun Mengyao appeared, my gaze has not shifted from her face. Why are you here? Yun Mengyao lowered her head, smiled lightly, and said, that sentence was practically it immediately caused an uproar among. So this really is Mr. Lu's new girlfriend? I smiled along. Let's go. Suze rushed forward. You're not. This is cheating. What did my sister do wrong? You used her and then how can you treat her like this? The crowd watched Suze's outburst and instinctively stepped back. Is he crazy? Is this Su Linyan's brother? Brother? Su Lin? Still, doesn't he look like a celebrity? Wait a minute, doesn't he resemble that Suze? I remember now. He does look like Suze. Wait, they both have the surname. Could they really be siblings? Suze, realizing someone had wrecked, immediately fell silent. He glared at me hatefully, then turned and left. After getting into Yun Mengyao's, I rolled down the window. Seeing Shen Bingbing, I gave her a task. Dream director of Hua seems to want to withdraw from the board. Get in touch with him and acquire all his shares in my name. Huashan Entertainment's headquarters is in the company that Suze signed with. Shen Bingbing was curious about how I knew about dream directors but didn't ask further. She nodded and left to Zhang Ting watched Shen Bingbing leave, started the car, and asked, Miss, are we heading to Yujing or Deeban? Yujing is Yun Mengyao's residence, and Deeban is mine. Both are in Shen City, where every inch of land here. Yun Mengyao looked at me, her gaze filled with. I said calmly to Deeban. Yun Mengyao sighed soft, her tone somewhat disappointed. Zhang Ting silently slapped himself mentally. Why did I even ask? I should have just driven them to Yujing directly. Would the lady hold it against me later? The two in the back seat paid no attention to Zhang Ting's. I looked at the woman whose ears seemed to droop and chuckled as I ruffled her hair. Don't want me? Yun Mengyao looked at me with grief. What do you think? She asked. I replied with a somewhat troubled, but I have some important documents at home that need hand. How about tomorrow? Yun Mengyao nodded. Whatever you say. After speaking, I gave Yun Mengyao a quick, gentle touch. Dissatisfied, you weren't like this yesterday, she said as she pushed me against the car and kissed me again with determination. Hearing the ambiguous sounds from the Zhang Ting silently raised, his face alternating between red. His earlier premonition was confirmed, but he couldn't help wanting to. The car drove all the way to Deeban. Zhang Ting cleared his throat. We've arrived at the destination. Reluctantly, Yun Mengyao pulled her. Go home, I said, blushing as I opened the car. Once I got out, I took a deep breath of fresh air. The cool evening breeze blowing again cleared some of the noise in my mind. I patted my cheeks, realizing belatedly that. So why did I end up being overwhelmed and questioning my life? I walked to the door of a standalone villa. I raised my hand and the door opened without much delay. A woman in a blue-gray apron greeted me with a smile. Mr. Lu, you're back. The meal will be ready soon. I nodded and walked inside. Where did you go last night? You didn't come home. Just as I entered the living, I was greeted with this question. I saw Qinhui, Su Linyan's mother, sitting right in the center of the living room with an air of interrogation. Li Yanfang awkwardly adjusted the edge of her apron. Mr. Lu, I forgot to tell you, Mrs. Su is here. She's been waiting for you for a while. I leaned against the corner wall with giving Qinhui a sarcastic look. Does where I go have anything to do? Looking at your attitude, one might think this is your house. Qinhui's eyebrows furrowed as if she couldn't believe what she heard. How dare you talk to me like, don't you know Lin Yan got hurt last night? I scoffed. So you only know he got hurt? Qinhui's face darkened. What do you mean? I walked over and sat down on the sofa, crossed my legs, and leisurely poured myself a cup of tea. After taking a sip, I looked at her. So what if I know he got hurt? And Qinhui was both angry and confused by but since I left her an opening, she seized the chance. Zeze told me that Lin Yan if you're not going to take care of him at the hospital, but shouldn't you at least give him a permit? I looked at Qinhui as if I were watching. Why don't I just hand the company over to him? Qinhui's eyes lit up momentarily, but she still tried to maintain. Everything you have belongs to Lin. Even if you don't give it now, you'll have to give it to him. I slammed the teacup. The Qing dynasty has been gone for years, and yet you still have a feudal mind. What did you say? When she came to her senses, she flew into a rage. Are you trying to rebel? Believe it or not, I sarcastically looked. Believe it or not, I'll make Lin Yan. I looked at Qinhui mockingly. You don't need to worry about that. Your precious daughter has already been kicked out of my house. Now please get out of my house immediately. As I finished speaking, Qinhui froze for a long time before. What do you mean by that? You broke up with Linyan? How is that possible? She knows how deeply I was devoted to her daughter. So much so that even as the CEO of a big, she dared to manipulate me. And now I've told her I broke up with her daughter. I sat back and enjoyed her face full of disbelief. If you don't believe me, why don't you call her and find out? Being kicked out doesn't just mean a breakup. It also means her position is gone too. Chinhui's face turned pale, and she hurriedly took out her phone to call Su. The moment the call connected, she bombarded her with questions. I couldn't hear what was said on the other, but I could clearly see the color draining from Chinhui's face bit until it was almost ghost. It was truly a delightful sight. Now you know, don't you? I gestured toward the door. Get out. Hearing my voice, Chinhui's stiff expression softened slightly. She didn't argue any. Instead, she moved closer and sat beside me, pleading. Xiaoyan, it's my fault. I shouldn't have come here without understanding the situation first. Did you and Linyan tell me, and I'll make sure to teach him a lesson. Don't really stay mad at him. I looked at Chinhui's pathetic attempt. Feeling no sympathy, I stood up. You truly know how to adapt to. Then I pointed toward the door and said, once get out. Chinhui's face was filled with completely devoid of her earlier. I really didn't want to waste another word on her. Aunt Li, please escort her out. Aunt Li, who had been silent all this time. Mr. Liu, let's talk. Mrs. Su is right after all. Mrs. Xing is right. It's normal for young couples to have disagreement, but you're making such a fuss. How will you resolve it later? I glanced at Aunt Li with a mocking smile. Have you forgotten who pays your salary? Aunt Li immediately went. She then turned to Chinhui. Mrs. Chin, you should leave. At this point, Chinhui had no choice but to leave. For someone who's always lowering her head even once or twice, even though I had humiliated her, she still dared to play the victim. Fine, remember this. This time, it's you who's giving up. Don't regret it later. When we return to even if you kneel and beg for Linyan to come, I won't let you through the door. After saying that, Chinhui stormed out, but little did she know, by the time her family of 3 returned to my status would be far beyond their reach. I leaned tiredly against the back of the empty living room, feeling unusually lonely. Not long after, my phone started ringing. I glanced at the caller ID and softened my tone. What's wrong? Yun Mengyao's pleasant voice came through the receiver. Are you feeling upset? I rubbed my temples. That obvious? I could hear it in your voice. There was a moment of silence on her end. Did Su Linyan's mother come to bother you? I suddenly sat upright and stepped out of the villa. I glanced around and saw the black Bentley still parked where it had been. The driver's seat was empty. I quickly walked to the rear door and knocked. The door opened immediately, revealing Yun Mengyao's exquisitely curved profile. I opened my mouth, and after a few breaths, finally voiced my, why haven't you left yet? Yun Mengyao smiled. I thought I'd wait and give you a ride to work. Seeing me stay silent, she lowered her head nervously. I didn't want to disturb you, but seeing the person who just left, I guess something was wrong. I was worried you'd feel upset waiting to give me a ride to. I couldn't tell if Yun Mengyao was, or if I was. You're just going to wait here, planning to spend the night in the car? She didn't say a word, lowering her head even further. I felt like my heart was about to. I just wanted a release to vent my emotions. So I dragged the guilty-looking Yun Mengyao back. The food on the table was no longer steaming, but it was still edible. I took 2 bottles of Bordeaux red wine from the cabinet. As the wine breathed, I glared at Yun Mengyao. Eat. She lowered her head apologetically. Don't be angry. I glanced at the decanter holding the wine, bit my chopsticks, and smiled. I should reward you. Even though my smile was a bit sinister, it made Yun Mengyao squirm with anticipation. What reward? What do you think? I tossed the ball back and buried myself in eating. After dinner, I poured the wine into our glasses, clinked glasses with her, and to your recovery, to clearing the poison from your system, and to clearing out the garbage around, to the second day of us being together and every day thereafter. Before she could react, I downed my glass in one go. I poured myself another, clinked her glass again, and asked, why aren't you? This wine isn't fake. Isn't it worth celebrating? I downed another glass. As I was about to pour a third, her hand stopped me. You're drunk. I raised an eyebrow. Are you kidding? I've only had 2 glasses, but Yun Mengyao kept holding the glass Stop firmly. Drinking. I gave in and listened to my wife. I smiled warmly as I looked at Yun Mengyao. The green in my eyes seemed to swirl. Almost. Luyan, if you don't want to be unable to get out of bed, stop looking at me like that. Even though I was drunk, he still became extremely excited by my unintentional. Do you know how little self-control he has around me? Yet I still dared to tease him so reckless. With drunken eyes, I seemed to be deciphering his words. Then, not sure if I hooked my finger at Yun Mengyao and commanded, from now on, I can't let Luyan drink. That was Yun Mengyao's first thought. Soon after, I became completely hazy as I held the woman and returned. I raised my hand to gently caress you. Why are you so good to me? Without waiting for her answer, I added, this life, it's my turn to spoil you. What? Yun Mengyao didn't fully catch the latter, but I refused to repeat. Yun Mengyao smiled and kissed my forehead lightly. Not happy that I'm good to you. Hearing this, I huffed, lost in some stubborn thought. Doesn't matter how capable I am. As long as my background isn't good, people will still. Yun Mengyao froze briefly, not knowing what I was thinking. She grabbed my collar. Will your parents also dislike my background and stop us from being together? Hearing this, Yun Mengyao suddenly understood a little. Thinking about leaving the villa, a shadow crossed her eyes. She reached out her delicate hands to hold, solemnly saying, my parents won't. They'll only marvel at how amazing to have come this far despite your environment. I blinked my confused eyes. Really? Yun Mengyao nodded seriously. Really? My parents are very open-minded. They also respect my opinions. If you don't believe me, I'll take you home to meet them tomorrow. Seeing that I didn't respond, Yun Mengyao felt a little but she didn't expect someone so drunk to understand everything. She took out her phone and made a call, then adjusted the air conditioner to make it warm. She patiently helped me take off my shoes. When Yun Mengyao was done, Zhang Ting arrived with a freshly prepared, sobering soup. Yun Mengyao sent her away, holding the soup in one hand and helping me sit up with, be good, drink this, and go. I leaned closer for a sniff and immediately turned my face away. Yun Mengyao found it fun and felt a sense of deja vu. I even drank Chinese, and you dislike this taste. I still refused. Yun Mengyao coaxed softly. Come on, just drink it. Or do you want me to feed you another way? I reached out, took the bowl, and dumped both the soup and bowl into the trash. Before Yun Mengyao could react, I leaned in and kissed her. The next morning, I was groggily awakened by a ringing phone. I answered the call and heard Shen Bingbing's anxious voice. Mr. Liu, check the trending topics. Suze posted on Weibo to smear you, and the company's stock price is already starting to fall. Hearing Shen Bingbing's word, I casually replied with a hum. Much ado about nothing. You've been with me for so long. How are you still so impatient? I wasn't worried about Suze. Right now, his attempt to provoke was playing right. Shen Bingbing was once again impressed by my apologies, Mr. Liu. I overreacted. But what Suze posted was infuriating. He even bought trending spots, and with his fans on top of that, Weibo is now flooded with people cursing you all. I was furious. I spoke calmly. It's okay. Let them scold. As long as it involves, arguments become particularly intense. In my previous life, I managed Tianyun, which dominated half of the entertainment industry. So this is nothing new to me. Shen Bingbing hesitated. Mr. Liu, should we release the evidence of Su Linyan's I smiled. Of course, we'll release, but not just that. I'll talk about it when I get. Your job is to reassure the shareholder. What I want is not just clarity. I want to kill two birds. Yun Mengyao looked at her eyes filled with excitement and she playfully pinched my earlobe. It seems you anticipated Suze's moves early on. I chuckled lightly. Given his personality and intelligence, he wouldn't give up so easily and wouldn't come up with anything better to strike me with. Yun Mengyao laughed again. Do you need my help? I shook my head. Yun Mengyao had already avenged me in this life. I want to do it. On the way to the office, I idly opened Weibo. I saw the related hashtags trending. It was ranked number 1. Lu Group CEO cheats with rising star Suze. Fighting injustice. I clicked on the trending topic. The top post was from Suze. It was a lengthy essay posted on his Weibo account. He emphasized how much Su Linyan had selflessly sacrificed and accused me of using her and discard. It painted me as an ungrateful scumbag and Su Linyan as a tragic victim. Perhaps out of fear of Yun Mengyao, the post didn't explicitly name her as the mistress. Reading through, I felt nothing at all. It was only when I saw comments insulting that my expression. I silently noted the ID of Yun Mengyao turned to glance at me. What's nothing? I turned off my phone and adjusted my expression. I'm just excited about dealing with Suze. Yun Mengyao looked. Eventually, she voiced her doubt. What went wrong between you and Su Linyan? In the blink of an eye, my attitude toward Su Linyan's family was worlds apart. If not for she might have suspected. I was a completely different. She didn't want to dig into it, but this foggy feel was uncomfortable. I hesitated for a moment. Yes, there was but I can't tell you the details for now. Can you give me some time? After all, the concept of being reborn sounds absurd. Not to mention, my first life, even though I had already taken the final step, I didn't have the courage to reveal all of this yet. Yun Mengyao, if you don't want to say, then don't. She still wanted to ask, once your issue with Su Linyan is resolved, will you leave me? She feared she was just a stand-in, a temporary replacement left by Su Linyan. She worried that if everything went, she might not be able to resist. The past few days were the happiest moments of her life. If she were given hope only to have it taken away, it would be as if her life. After arriving at I pulled up evidence of Su Linyan's repeated and posted it using the official account. I didn't add any extra comments. At that moment, Shen Bingbing knocked. She placed a document on the desk. Mr. Liu, this is the equity transfer agreement. It just needs your signature. I flipped through the contract, nodded approvingly. Well done. Then signed his name in the signature area. Shen Bingbing nodded towards the car. Where is Mr. Liu going? I slightly curved my lips as the new shareholder. Of course, I'm going to greet everyone and get to know Huaxing Entertainment. In the office, Suze smiled brightly, watching Liu's stock plummet. What's so great about being a president? Don't you know my influence in the entertainment industry? Dare to show off in front of me? I'll make your company bankrupt. Assistant Xiao Chao handed him a freshly brewed, flattering him enthusiastically. Brother Zhe, I think it won't be long before that man comes crying to beg you and pleads with Miss Su to reconcile. Suze snorted. Come beg us? Do we have to forgive him? He embarrassed me at the company entrance. I'll make him kneel and apologize in front of. As soon as he finished, the lounge door was slammed. Su Linyan walked in with a gloomy face. Who told you to post this on Weibo? Suze froze. Sister, I was just standing up for you. What's with your attitude? Lu Yan treated you like, and you still won't deal with him? Besides, I just wanted to teach. When he can't hold on and comes to it, I'll be happy to let him off the hook. Su Linyan looked at him like he was an idiot. Should I call you naive or stupid? You think this little thing can shake Lu's but Lu's stock price is already falling. What's going on? Suze spoke and saw the stock price on the computer screen stop falling and then rise at double of its $10 drop. At the same time, Assistant Xiao Chao's brother Zhe look at Weibo. What's happening on Weibo? Isn't everyone on Weibo still cursing Lu? Suze felt a bit at a loss. He grabbed his phone and saw multiple trending topics. The truth behind Susie's sister, the blood-sucking siblings, got what Suze widened his eyes. What are these? Clicking into one of the trending, he found the comments had completely turned against him. Suze still has the nerve to complain on Weibo. Doesn't he know where all that money went? The position was built by embezzling funds and throwing money. Suze stared at the overwhelming. His hands turned cold. How could this happen? Wasn't the embezzlement authorized by Lu? And now he dares to use it as evidence to clear his. Su Linyan angrily said, you knew this could backfire on you, but you still went ahead without consult. Do you know how much effort and pressure it took to get you to this position? And yet you acted on your own without asking me. Suze realized he had made a huge mistake. So what should we do? We can leak the fact that Lu Yan covered the debts for you, proving it was all voluntary on his and unrelated to us. Su Linyan's head throbbed in anger. Shut up! Lu Yan's clarification has already made the public believe that he is an endlessly forgiving. Even if we release evidence that he covered our debts, it would only reinforce his image as a devoted, and the public will still blame him. Suze panicked. Sister, are you just going to leave me to fend? I worked so hard to. I don't want to leave the entertainment in. Su Linyan massaged her temples. Her brother's success was entire. How could she possibly abandon him? Here's what we'll do. You'll post an apology statement claiming you didn't know about the embezzle. At least that will protect you. I'm just a nobody, so I don't care if they scold. Suze quickly nodded. Okay, I'll post it right away. However, just as he picked up, the lounge door was burst open again. The assistant to the director of the artist managed. Mr. Su, this lounge is no longer yours. Please pack up your belongings and leave immediately. What? Both Suze and Su Linyan were. Su Linyan frowned. What do you mean by that? What do I mean? The professionally dressed woman, wearing a face. We just received orders from the higher. Huaxing has decided to terminate. With a thud, Suze's phone fell to the ground. Su Linyan's face turned ashen. Terminate? What do you mean? Explain clearly. The female assistant adjusted her glasses on her nose. If you don't believe me, go out and ask around. Su Linyan's chest heaved with anger. Only now did she realize that despite the serious, no one from the company's upper management had stepped. It turned out they had already decided to blacklist. But wait, this situation wasn't severe enough. According to her, proper PR could have. Thinking about what the assistant just said, she stepped out of the lounge. At the corner of the hallway, she saw a group of people gather. Did you hear? Suze got blacklisted. Serves. No wonder Suze had access to so many resources. But that guy is such an ingrate. Exactly. What a wolf. Still, this doesn't seem bad, and he's at the peak of his. He could bring in a lot of profit for the company. So why would our boss be willing to black? Rumor has it, I heard a new shareholder joined the company and directly ordered the. Hearing this, Su Linyan froze in place. A new shareholder. Just as she wondered, the sound of footsteps came from a new shareholder. Just as she was wondering who the new shareholder, a sound of footsteps came from behind. Su Linyan turned her head to and immediately felt a surge of. She saw Huaxing's shareholders and executives crowding around two people, walking towards her. Among the two people being surrounded, one was Feng Litang, Huaxing's president, and the other was me, the one who fired. Feng Litang raised his hand and said, This is our company's new director, Mr. Lu Yan. Please give him a warm welcome. Everyone present started clapping. Colleagues exchanged glances, all showing an expression of sudden realization. At that, someone added fuel to the fire and said, Isn't that Suze's sister, the agent Su Linyan? As soon as these words, everyone's eyes turned to Su Linyan. They looked back and forth between her and me. Su Linyan stared at me intently. Are you really going to destroy? Feng Litang noticed the tension and quickly waved his hand. Go back to your work. Although everyone wanted to watch no one dared to disobey the president's order. In a short while, only Su Linyan and I were left at the scene. Destroy us? I savored the words, finding them quite novel. Your previous position was given by me. Suze's current status was also built by me. Now, I'm just reclaiming what's mine and resetting everything to zero. How is that destroying us? Su Linyan took a deep breath. What on earth happened? Luyan, you know what I'm asking about. If you're going to ruin me, at least before I could reply, Suze came running over. Sister? Seeing me, Suze's expression immediately. It's you, isn't it? The company wants to blacklist me. It's all you're doing. I let out a cold laugh. So what if it was me? Suze was filled with hate. Screaming, he lunged at me. I'll kill you. I didn't even blink. I raised my hand and grabbed his with a twist of force. Snap! The sound of breaking was accompanied by Suze's. I tossed him aside like throwing a chick. By the time Su Linyan reacted, Suze was already on the ground. Linyan quickly helped Suze up. Her gaze at me was icy cold. I'll remember what happened today. Hope you won't regret it in the future. With that, she supported Suze, and I watched their retreating backs, my eyes full of coldness. Regret? My biggest regret was wasting time on him, yet betraying the deep love of you Manga. But luckily, I still have a chance to make. Except for what? I made a call. As the call connected, a somewhat hoarse voice came from the other end. Who is it? Hearing that voice again, I still felt uncomfortable. Su Minghui, the only legitimate heir of the Su family, and Su Linyan's half-brother. Who is it? If you don't talk, I'll hang up. I called his name Su Minghui. He paused. Who are you? Who I am is not important. I just want to remind you of something. Beware of the illegitimate daughter your father. She's always thinking about return and fighting for the family. Su Minghui scoffed dismissively. Just those siblings? As long as they won't even step into the Su family estate. Mr. Su, don't be too confident. In the past life, no matter how hard you still couldn't stop the three of them from returning to this time, though without my help, and without any leverage to attract. I know Su Linyan well. She won't stop until she gets. Su Minghui might not be her match. What do you mean by that? And who exactly are you? I hung up the phone, then blocked the number. I've said all I needed to say. If Su Minghui still doesn't wake up, there's nothing more I can do. If worst comes to worst, I'll handle it myself. Across from the cafe was an upscale club. On the club's second floor outdoor, there was a clear view of the cafe's glass wall. Xia Wanning was in a meeting with representatives of the Shen. Her gaze inadvertently swept, and when she saw me sitting quietly, she suddenly stood up. Opposite her, Lu Jianfeng paused in confusion. What's wrong, Miss Xia? Li Shi, standing nearby, also her posture fully alert. Xia Wanning's gaze was fixed on me. The man's. Lu Jianfeng followed her line of sight, then smiled. Miss Xia, since you've stayed in the. You might not know, but that's not just any man. Xia Wanning stopped her urgence, slowly sat down and asked, What do you mean? Lu Jianfeng continued. Miss Xia, you might not know, but you've surely heard of Lu. Of course, she replied, the that rose to prominence during his tenure. It built an enterprise that soared to covering most global markets within just 3 years. It's become the leader in AI. Xia Wanning, being at the center of business power, of course knew of it, but online information about was sparse. There were no names or photos, only that he was a man, and seemed quite young. He primarily operated in the Shen. Lu Jianfeng, seeing Xia Wanning deep in thought, stopped keeping her in suspense. He's Lu Shi's seat. This truly shocked Xia Wanning. What? Hearing Lu Jianfeng, she had assumed this man held an important position, but never expected he was the CEO him. Previously, she thought the so-called very least, young he should be. But this man looks like he's only in his 20s. Or is it that he just looks younger? If that's the case, perhaps he's mistaken. Thinking this, he couldn't help but feel a bit distracted. Since you know him, he asked, do you know his age? Lu Jianfeng replied enthusiastically, I was just about to tell you, Miss Xia. That man is only 19 this year. Seeing Xia Wanning's stunned expression, Lu Jianfeng assumed she was shocked by his remarkably young age. Then he sighed. He's the same age as my son, who's still in his final year and can't even understand basic. Meanwhile, this guy is already the CEO of a list. It's infuriating. He laughed bitterly. I feel like my heart is about to jump out of my chest. His voice turning dry. You're saying he's 19? Lu Jianfeng laughed. Miss, don't you find it unbelievable too? Those of us over 50 years old hate to admit being outdone by a mere teenager. But after spending a few years, I have to admit this young man, despite his age, is no less competent than us old hands in the business. Xia Wanning struggled to avoid losing her composure. She picked up a pen and signed the doc, then turned to Lu Jianfeng and said, "This project is approved. Don't let me down, Mr. Lu." "Of course," he replied earnestly. "I'll do my—" Lu Jianfeng carefully took the approved doc, promising, and adding earnestly, "I've also arranged a banquet for you. You simply must honor us with your—" Li Shi thought to herself, how tactless can he see Miss Xia is barely holding? Lu Jianfeng didn't know, but he had been with Xia Wanning, had already guessed the reason behind Miss Xia's reaction. Speaking of which, this young man did bear a striking resemblance to those of their in her younger days. With this thought, he stepped forward. President Xia doesn't like formalities like doing your job well is more important than anything. Besides, our President Xia has other— You may leave now. After Lu Jianfeng left, Xia Wanning immediately headed down, not even waiting for the elevator. But when she stepped out of the club's entrance, the spot where I had been sitting was now empty. I was already gone. Li Shi was dumbfounded as well. "Miss, should we go to his company?" The summer breeze cooled Xia Wanning, helping her regain some composure. Her beautiful eyes gazed toward the cafe. After a moment, she slowly said, "Call ahead to make an appointment and investigate his personal info and the past 19 years of his life, every detail." Meanwhile, in the hospital ward, Suze was sobbing uncontrollably. "Look how harsh Lu Yan's action. I feel like my hand is completely ruined." Su Linyan was annoyed, but she still comforted him, pulling. "The doctor said it's just a minor sprain. Be mindful of and it'll heal in time." Suze continued, "But are we just going to let this slide?" Su Linyan gritted her teeth. "Of course not. When we return to the Su family, anyone who's humiliated us will pay the price." Suze looked up at her. "But now, you've lost your leverage to— I've been blacklisted by the company, and Su Minghui is blocking us at every— Do you think Dad will even take us in?" Su Linyan scoffed dismissive. "Do you think I wouldn't leave myself away? If this path is blocked, we still have the option of a marriage alliance." "A marriage alliance?" Suze's thinking of something. His eyes suddenly lit up. "You're still in contact with Haochen, aren't you?" Song Haochen, the only son of the Song. When Su Linyan was in the capital, she had gotten— If it weren't for the Song family patriarch disliking and meeting me, who was a better stepping stone, he wouldn't have given up on Song Haochen to turn to me. Although he chose Lu Yan, he's always kept in touch with Song Haochen. Moreover, with his intention, the other party has always believed that it would, and doesn't blame him. He still feels guilty toward him. Now that I've abandoned him, he no longer needs to hide it. Yes, we're still in contact. Once I persuade his father, we'll get married." Suze was instantly overjoyed. "That's great. The Song family and the Su family are well matched. Brother Song Haochen is also the Song family. After you two get married and win his father, he might even bring us back to the Su family." As he spoke, his expression darkened. "You shouldn't have given up on Brother Haochen before. Although the Song family ranks only 8th among— It's still a well-established family with a long history. Their businesses have a solid foundation. Lu's enterprise looks good now, but how many years can such a young business maintain its— Besides, he's an orphan from a welfare home. A bastard. Even if he mingled, he'll still be looked down upon. Does he think clinging to Yun Mengyao will get him? The Song family values family." Hearing Suze's words, Su Linyan's mood, which had been gloomy, finally improved a little. He pulled out a few tissues and handed them. "Wipe your messy face. Song Haochen will be here soon. Don't embarrass yourself." Suze blankly took the tissue. "Brother Chen is coming? Isn't he in the capital? Why is he suddenly coming here?" Su Linyan explained. "The elderly patriarch of the Zheng family is the Song and Zheng families are He's here to visit." Meanwhile, in the luxurious lounge, as the woman walked through the door, Yun Mengyao waved for Zhang Ting to make some— "What a rare guest. Sister Wanming, why did you suddenly think of—" Xie Wanming tossed her car keys onto the coffee table and sat on the sofa opposite Yun Mengyao. Her demeanor was as natural as if she were at home. "I should be asking you, why are you staying in Shen's?" Yun Mengyao smirked at Xie. "You don't seem like someone who meddles in others." Xia Wanming's expression remained, but it carried a trace of familiarity. "With 2 sisters at home, I wouldn't bother about you. It's uncle and auntie who asked me. They said if you don't return soon, they'll come here themselves." At this point she paused, a faint smile forming at the— "I wonder which man has captivated you." Yun Mengyao choked slightly. Xia Wanming didn't pay much attention to Yun Meng. Instead, she addressed Yun Mengyao's— "I'm here to evaluate and approve a Also, she straightened slightly, the light in her eyes seeming to brighten a little. "I think I've found my brother." At this, Yun Mengyao's smile faded. "Really? Have you done a DNA test yet?" Xia Wanming's intertwined fingers fidgeted unconsciously. "Not yet, but I have a feeling. I just know he's my brother." "Do you know that kind of intuition?" "All the other suspects I've investigated, including those who pretended to look like never gave me this feeling." Yun Mengyao seemed puzzled. Then why not take him for a DNA test instead of coming here to relay messages? Is it more important than finding your— Of course not. It's just that I'm not certain. He didn't make it explicit. That person might be the president, and the closer he gets to uncovering the truth, the more anxious he feels. Yun Mengyao probably guessed his feelings and didn't ask for— At that moment, Jiang Ting walked over with 2 cups. Yun Mengyao picked one up and asking casually, "Your brother must—" Xia Wanming nodded. He was born 6 months after. Yun Mengyao was about to ask about her brother's exact birth when she saw Miss Xia, who had been friendly, just suddenly change her expression. "Don't even think about my brother," she warned. "Even if— and well-matched in status. My brother was kidnapped at birth. It's been so hard to find. I'm going to spoil him before I even let him think about marriage." Yun Mengyao looked at Xia Wanming, who suddenly became hostile and couldn't help but feel amused. "You're not even sure if he's your—" she said, exasperated. This turn of events made her lose interest in asking about his— Eager to clarify things, she added, "Besides, I already have a boyfriend." Xia Wanming seemed surprised to hear this. Before she could ask for details, her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Li Qian with news about her brother. Suddenly, she lost interest in Yun Mengyao's love life. "I've passed on Uncle and Auntie's message. If there's nothing else, I'll be going." Without giving Yun Mengyao a chance to see her, Xia Wanming got into a black sedan parked by the road. In the driver's seat, handed her a thin folder of documents. "Miss, according to our investigation, the young man's name is Lu Yan. He's 19 years old, but his birth date— moreover, he has no parent. Before the age of 5, he was taken in by the net. No other information could be found." Hearing that he was an orphan with no parent, Xia Wanming felt both excited and excited at the possibility that he might, and even more likely, heartbroken at the thought of the he might have endured. But why was no other information available? The Xia, while not a top-tier international intelligence, held a status equal to the Liu family domestically. It shouldn't be impossible to track some— Li Qian shook her head. "My apologies, miss, but it seems Mr. Lu's information was deliberately erased. Only superficial details remain. Nothing else can be uncovered." Xia Wanming looked thoughtfully at the document. She ordered, "Place an order with Section 7. Then she glanced at her watch. "What's the result of the meeting you scheduled?" Li Qian replied, "The appointment is set for tomorrow morning at 10. Xia Wanming nodded. She was about to say when Li Qian hesitantly said, "Miss, Section 7 rejected our request." "Hmm?" Xia Wanming looked up at her. "Why did they reject it? Did you contact Ye Bai?" Ye Bai, one of Section 7's core figures, was also the most mysterious and unpredictable. Whether he accepted requests depended in— "No, I went straight to their official," Li Qian explained, and less than Xia Wanming's confusion deepened. "Let's hold off on— For now, the most important thing is to— whether Lu Yan is truly my brother." In the office of the Lu Corporation, a man wearing a uniquely shaped head— Section's Elder Chiye spoke on the other end. "The Xia family's miss tried to investigate you. Do I get any reward for that?" The man replied in a low voice, "No. But do you have any grievances with her? Why is she trying to invest? Do you need Section 7 to send— Don't hang up. I'll cut the call once I'm done talking." Leaving Chie on the other side of the ocean, after shutting down, I called Shen Bingbing into my office. Shen Bingbing glanced at the clock, noting it wasn't— "President Lu, aren't you waiting for President—" Ever since the president started dating Yun Mengyao, he found himself rarely having the chance. Commuting to and had become Yun Mengyao's exclusive— I countered with a question. Why wait for him to— "Can't I go pick him up instead?" Yun Mengyao, finishing work early for one, was planning to pick me up like yesterday. But as soon as she stepped out of— she saw a Maybach parked at the entrance. "Miss, doesn't that look like President Lu's car?" Jiang Ting was in awe. The rear window rolled down, and it was indeed President— Jiang Ting's jaw dropped. "President Lu, what are you doing?" I leaned my elbow on the car window, smiling at Yun Mengyao. "Why else would I be here at this hour?" "Of course, I came to pick you up from work." Yun Mengyao lowered her head, smiling. Her long eyelashes cast a soft shadow, and the evening sunlight danced around her. My heart skipped a beat involuntarily. I thought to myself, if not for— I feared I might have fallen for this deadly allure in a past. Feigning calm, I cleared my throat. I tapped the car window and gestured for her to get in. Yun Mengyao nodded. As soon as she opened the car, Jiang Ting exclaimed, "Miss, do you know what you look like right now?" Yun Mengyao squinted her eyes, making but she fearlessly replied, "A shy bride about to enter the wedding sedan." Shen Bingbing and I burst out laughing. Compared to Jiang Ting's bold antic, I thought I handled my subordinates quite well. Yun Mengyao crooked her finger at Jiang Ting. "Come here." Jiang Ting wisely clung to my leg, shouting for help. Yun Mengyao's lips curved into a sinister smile. "Seems like you don't plan on going back." With that, she ignored him. She bent down and got into the car. Seeing Yun Mengyao seated, "President Lu, are we heading to the city district?" She was unaware and assumed it was just a routine pickup. This time, I turned to Yun Mengyao for her opinion. But before she could respond, Jiang Ting jumped in again. "Shen Bingbing, you don't get it, do you? Miss Yun and President Lu's where you drop them off? Doesn't matter. It's just a change of scenery, that's all. Yun Mengyao raised an eyebrow, but did not refute this time. Shen Bingbing, however, it wasn't until I gave direct that he finally determined the destiny. Before departure, he turned to Zhang Ting. Miss Jiang, are you No need. I still have to drive Miss Yun's car. Zhang Ting waved her hand, her gaze turning mischievous as, karma's a cycle, she said with a grin. You'll get to experience what I. With that, she turned and walked away, leaving no room for question. Shen Bingbing was left utterly baffled. However, he soon understood the meaning behind hearing the ambiguous sounds from he could to his own encounters with the president and Su Ling. Yet he had never seen them kiss. It seemed Su Lingyan was indeed, at that moment, a sudden phone ring shattered the. Breathless, I pushed Yun Mengyao away, grabbed my phone. What's up, Xiaohua? A youthful voice came from the other end of the line. Brother, I asked, how are things on your side? Yun Mengyao could but glance at me several times. She knew I had a younger sister, the daughter of. How are things over there? Yun Mengyao couldn't help but glance at me. She knew I had a younger sister, the daughter of the orphanage director who once adopted, but she had never seen how we interacted. She didn't know that when I was with that girl, I looked like this, as if all my sharp edges and masks were, even my voice filled with warmth. Although she didn't want to, she couldn't help but feel jealous. Lu Xiaohua had no idea that her future sister-in-law was already feeling nothing much on my. She said, I just wanted. Did you and Su Lingyan break up? I asked. You saw. Lu Xiaohua's voice carried a subtle joy. Brother, you finally figured it out. Hearing the relief in her, I felt a pang of guilt. Even my assistant insisted. So how could I not understand? But because of our bond, even knowing that Su Lingyan used me, I couldn't let go. I kept hoping her memories would. Brother, do you have a new girlfriend? Lu Xiaohua's voice pulled me back to the present. I glanced at Yun Mengyao and smiled. I'll introduce you to. The moment I said this, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. Just as I thought Lu Xiaohua weakly asked, Brother, is she also a gentleman? I'll fly over tonight. Instinctively, I asked, don't you have a comp? Then I guessed her concern. I couldn't help but laugh. She's the one I've chosen. Don't worry. What if I get even more worried? You just broke up with Su, and now you're already certain about. After saying that, after hanging up, I turned to Yun Mengyao. Don't you have anything to say? After saying that, after hanging up, I turned to glance at Yun Mengyao. Don't you have anything to say? I could clearly feel her emotions fluctuating. Yun Mengyao had already stopped when I mentioned taking her to meet Lu Xiao. At this moment, she softly asked, am I the one you've chosen? I raised my hand and hugged. Yes. Yu Mingyao looked at me with a face full of. That's all I need to hear. The next day, as usual, I was working in the president's office. At 10 o'clock, I heard a knock on the door. Come in. With a click, the door was opened. Xiaowanin entered with Li Qian. The moment I saw Xiaowanin, my lips twitched slightly. She was obviously dressed meticulously. For those in the know, it was a meeting between. For those who didn't, it looked like I was not unfamiliar with. The head of the Xia family in the was a single mother hailed as a strong. Miss Xia had perfect all her mother's qualities. However, rumors painted her as never bothering to spend effort on her appearance. So what was this all about? If I hadn't seen her in my past, I might have thought she was someone else. Seeing my reaction, Li Qian internally panicked. Did she overdo it? He recalled the morning when Miss Xia said she needed to dress to meet her younger brother, despite his repeated emphasis that the paternity test, and it wasn't certain if he was her. Miss Xia spent 3 hours trying on and remained dissatisfied. In the end, it was what she should wear, choosing this outfit for the indecisive Miss Xia. And now, it seemed like I was the first to break the silence. President Xia, a pleasure to meet you. The moment I finished, she saw her young lady leaning slightly against the wall. She immediately felt it was after following her young lady for. She was well aware that her young lady was a brother-loving. She often missed her younger brother to the. Xiaowan Ning was unaware of how her subordinates secretly talked about her. Hearing my voice, she instantly showed joy. You know me? He understood. His young lady's intelligence dropped to 0. I found Xiaowan Ning's attitude somewhat. Face often graced the covers of financial It was hard not to recognize her. Xiaowan Ning slightly regained her composure. Mr. Lu, you're so talented. At such a young age, you founded Lu Shi and led your team to take cutting-edge technology to the world. That's what makes me admire. This turned into mutual business flattery. I tugged at the corner, stood up, and walked to the guest sofa. Miss Xia, no need to be. Please have a seat. Shente went to make coffee. Shen Bing glanced cold at Xiaowan Ning before leaving the room. After sitting face to face, I got straight to the point. Miss Xia, what brings you here? As far as I know, the Xia family's businesses don't involve or are you considering expanding into this field? Xiaowan Ning smiled. What if I say yes? Would Mr. Liu give me this opportunity? I pondered for a moment. The Xia family is a big. I know a bit about Miss Xia's style in the business. As long as it's fair play, collaborating with them would be a win-win for me. I tapped the armrest with my forefinger. So what's your plan, Miss Xia? Are you into production or? Xia Wanning immediately replied, investment. I was momentarily stunned. Yes, what do you think, Mr. Liu? I became instantly wary. The current shareholder structure is already balanced. The less involved, the less. Xia Wanning realized I misunderstood. She quickly interrupted. I mean invest, not buying shares. In fact, she wanted to add that it didn't matter, but she held back, fearing I'd over. Now I was truly surprised. Examples of pure investment without ownership, but outright giving money like this is rare. It's not typical of Xia. Even though Miss Xia was forthright, she wouldn't be doing charity, would she? Thinking this, I voiced my doubt. Xia Wanning thought, no wonder he's in this position at such a young age. Li Qian, observing from the side, if only our young lady could wake up and realize this isn't her brother. Why are you so proud? Mr. Liu, if you're worried. I interrupted her. Wait a moment. Can I ask why? Because you're my brother, and I'm willing to invest. Of course, she couldn't say that, at least not since its founding. Lu Shi has steadily risen, and although Xia missed she now wanted to share in the profit. Mr. Liu, would you give me this chance? I remained silent for a long time. I can't just take advantage of you for nothing. You should review before making a decision. As I spoke, I noticed Shen Bingbing entering with coffee. Bring the recent development summary, I instructed. Shen Bingbing nodded and left. When she returned, I took them and prepared to give them to Xia Wan. But then she stood up, walked around the coffee table, and sat beside me as if she wanted to review them together. Since Mr. Liu is so considerate, I'll accept your suggestion. I shifted slightly. The strange feeling I had when I first saw intensified at this. Reading a document requires sitting next. What's wrong with this woman? Xia Wanning pointed at a section. Mr. Liu, can you explain this? I don't quite. I suppressed the unease and looked down at the section. While I was distracted, Xia Wanning quietly raised her up. From Shen Bingbing's angle, she couldn't see Xia, but from Li Qian's angle, her heart raced as she watched Xia Wanning's. Just as the action was about to succeed, I seemed to have eyes on the back of my. I turned and grabbed the friendliness on my face, replaced by a sharp look. Miss Xia, please show some respect. Xia Wanning was stunned, not expecting me to be so perceptive. Li Qian couldn't bear to. Her always upright lady was doing something so for the first time and failed miserably. Since she was caught, Xia Wanning stopped hiding. Mr. Liu, I just thought you looked like my long-lost younger brother, so I wanted to take some of your hair to verify. I apologize for not. I paused, pondering her word. I rarely delved into my origins in this. I only remembered that when I was taken away by wearing a black mask. After a long car ride, once he confirmed he had shaken off the man, whose face I couldn't see clearly, covered my nose and mouth in an attempt to smother me. The man, probably a newborn to have an adult's mind, capable of holding my. When he noticed the baby had stopped and wasn't breathing, he tossed me into the roadside bushes. I waited until the criminals left. After realizing they threw me into the roadside bushes, I waited until the criminals left. When I sensed passersby, I started crying loudly to attract attention. Eventually, I met the orphanage director who adopted me. In hindsight, if I hadn't retained memories of my previous, and if I hadn't been born with the wit to save, I would have died at birth in this life. I don't blame my family for failing to protect me, because no one could have. Such an incident would occur. But since I was searching for Su and feared that, under my family's care, I wouldn't be able to act with my adult, I never considered reuniting. Unexpectedly, 19 years later, a relative sought me out. After reflecting, I didn't respond to Xia Wanning. Instead, I asked, so you investigated my background? Xia Wanning was stunned again. You knew? Did you underestimate? If someone investigated me without me noticing, I wouldn't be qualified to be the CEO. Xia Wanning felt a mix of shame, realizing I wasn't angry. After confirming I wasn't, she straightforwardly made her request. Mr. Liu, since you already know, would you agree to a paternity test? When Shen Bingbing entered with coffee, she overheard this sentence. As she set down the coffee, her eyes darted between her boss, as if trying to find a. For some reason, they did seem. I looked at the swirling coffee, tapping my fingers lightly on the armrest. Xia Wanning noticed my hesitation and grew increasingly uneasy. Our family has always deeply regretted losing our little. It was a source of pain and guilt for. But there were so many sudden incidents at the time. Not only was our newborn brother, we deeply regretted and blamed our entire family was heartbroken and full of. But so many things happened suddenly at that time. Not only was our newborn brother, but our father also suddenly plus opportunistic relatives and shareholders. Mom almost didn't make it through. Over the years, we have never stopped searching, even knowing that being abducted in such likely led to a tragedy. We have never given up on you. If you are really our brother, can you give us a chance? We know you must have endured a lot over the years, and we will surely compensate you. In the end, his tone even carried a hint. Yes, Mr. Liu? Li Qian echoed. The three young ladies are almost driven although Madame is usually reserved. She often spends entire days in the room prepared for the young. They long every day to reunite with the young master. I looked at Xia Waning's almost pleading eyes, feeling a bit unnatural. Except for Yun Mengya, I had never seen a goddess of the heaven humble herself before me. I could easily handle those who played, but when it came to this kind, it left me uneasy. I may not even be your brother, so there's no need to talk to me this way, I said as I raised my hand and plucked some hair with roots, handing it to Xia Wan. I have other things to do this afternoon, so you can go handle the paternity. Shen Bingbing, worried, reminded me, Mr. Liu, aren't you afraid that someone might misuse your hair? Considering Xia Waning's presence, he didn't finish, but the implication was clear. This time, before Xia Wan, I looked up and said, I'll assign you a task. Accompany Xia Waning for the. You don't need to follow me. Only then did Shen Bingbing feel reassured. You don't need to follow me anymore. Only then did Shen Bingbing feel. Yes, Xia Waning wasn't offended by our conversation. Instead, he felt relieved by my sense of caution. He solemnly accepted the hair I handed over, sealing it in a sterile bag he had prepared. He then gave me a deep look. He didn't address me as Mr. Liu or I'll find you once the paternity test results are out. He said, before leaving, I returned the cooperation proposal. Since your purpose here isn't take this back. This time, Xia Waning genuinely looked awkward. Well, we could also. I raised a hand to interrupt him. I've reviewed the project. It's practically given. Since it's not confirmed that I'm your brother, I won't take advantage of this. Take it back. Seeing my firm attitude, he swallowed the rest of his words, gesturing to Li Qian. He then extended a hand to Shen Bingbing. No, I can't. Please, after you, Mr. Shen Bingbing was half scared by Xia Waning's gesture. Even setting aside Xia Waning's prestigious, if the paternity test confirmed their blood relationship, the other party would still be his boss's. How could he dare? In the end, Xia Waning didn't say more. He simply stepped out first, his strides calm and composed. But those who knew him well, like Li Qian, could detect a trait. Once outside the company, Xia Waning opened the car door and got in, taking out his phone to make a call. Yang Wanyun, in the study of their Beijing home, was when she received Xia Wan and heard that he might have found her son. She immediately stood up and I'll head there right now. Xia Waning quickly stopped her. It's not confirmed yet. Just have someone airship the hair sample. I'm worried one test alone won't be The butler, Lu Dequan, also tried to calm Madame down. Please don't get to it. This isn't the first time. We thought we found the young master. It's more important to take care of your health. Yang Wanyun slowly sat back down, recalling the repeated cycles of hope, and a layer of melancholy clouded her eye. No matter what, I hope it's true this time. It's been 19 years. I haven't had a peaceful night of sleep, afraid something bad might have happened to him, or that he's no longer alive. I don't know how many more 19 I can wait for. Pushing her emotions aside, Yang Wanyun quickly sealed it in a sterile bag. She carried out the process. Housekeeper, have someone deliver this by helicopter immediately. Unbeknownst to me, my situation had once again thrown their household. To be precise, even though I had agreed to the paternity, I didn't care much about the result. With my current, I could live just fine without. Besides, Yun Mengyao had already said, my parents don't care about, so nothing can stop me now. Pushing these thoughts aside, I pulled out the invitation I received a few days ago from the Zheng family and made a call. Not long after, a blonde woman, wearing sunglasses, walked in, carrying several large shopping bags. Did you miss me? I glanced at her and said, stop. Give me the clothes and shoes. She wasn't annoyed in the slightest, instead responding cheerfully. The person in front of me was then the top stylist Diana, known as currently working for Huaxing. She was considered the styling god. Even the most prominent A-list had to line up to have him do theirs, and it depended on his mood. Yet such a figure was at my beck and call. While I was in the dressing room, changing in, Diana was munching on an apple, saying indistinctly, I just got back from and heard you've become a shareholder of our company. Are you planning to keep me as... I ignored her. Diana didn't mind and continued on her own. I heard you broke up with Miss Sue. Congratulations. So how about considering me next? I glanced at her and said, thanks. Diana acted as if she had discovered. You really cheated? I thought it was just Suze badmouth. Amazing. Stop prying, I said, walking to the desk. Can we start the styling now? Diana lightly brushed my cheek with her right hand and smiled faintly. Right. Meanwhile, Yun Mengyao glanced at the time, intending to call Lu Yan, when the office door was pushed open. Jiang Ting poked her head in. Miss, Mr. Lu is here. Yun Mengyao, but seeing Jiang Ting's odd expression, she realized something was off. What's going on? She asked. The moment she saw me walk through, her words stopped. My sharp appearance made Yun Mengyao's breath quicken. She stared at me in stunned silence, unable to speak for a long time. I walked over to Yun Mengyao, placing both hands on the desk. Speechless? I asked. Yun Mengyao closed her eyes briefly, her chest heaving violently. Blushing, she finally said, "Where are you going?" I looked puzzled. "Didn't you get the I did," but she paused, then pressed the intercom to give an order. "Reschedule tonight's video conference." "But miss, it's an international. We've been preparing for this for over a month." Yun Mengyao was about to say something, but if you have something to do, honestly, I wasn't keen on it, but Uncle Zhang helped me a lot during the— I can't ignore that. Yun Mengyao's tone carried a— You're dressing so sharply. Attending the banquet alone, you'll probably charm all those well— I'm going with you. I glanced at her. Don't be willful. Yun Mengyao grabbed my finger and bit it, but she ultimately didn't use— I'll find you after my meeting. If there's anything urgent. As night fell, and the lanterns outside the luxury cars, father and son of the Zheng family stood at the greeting each guest as they arrived. When I arrived, the bustling entrance gasps echoed around. Zheng Guochang was— Then he pulled his son and walked toward me. Usually, everyone's attention is on, but today I realized President Lu's looks are no less impressive. Dressed like this, even celebrities in the entertainment industry. I handed him the Uncle Zheng, you're too kind. President Lu, your presence already honored. Why bring a gift? Zheng Guochang playfully scolded while accepting the gift. I smiled lightly. It's only proper. Xiaolong, this is the older brother. Zheng Guochang pushed. He's only 19 years old. Yet already, he's even more impressive than your father. Look at you. You're still a month shy of— He's only 19 years old, yet he's already the CEO of a listed— He's more capable than even your— Look at yourself. You're still a month— You can't even make it into the top 500. All you do is play around every day. I don't expect you to be as excellent as Miss— If you could be even 1/10,000 as good as him— Got it. You say this 800 times a day. Zhenglong brushed his hand away. He glanced at me briefly with a— You can greet the guests yourself. I'm going to find my cousin. This child— Zheng Guochang watched as Zhenglong ran off. Then he turned to me. Please excuse him, Mr. Lu. The kid's been spoiled by— I'll give him a proper lesson when I get— I felt a slight headache. I knew Zheng Guochang. He just had the common problem, but it unintentionally put me in a bad— And judging by Zhenglong's reaction, this wasn't the first time he had been compared. Mr. Zheng, your way of educating is perhaps a bit inconsiderate. Each child has their own— Don't push them too hard. Yes, you're absolutely right, Mr. Lu. Zheng Guochang gestured. Please come inside, Mr. Lu. I nodded and followed the staff member. Inside the banquet, Zhenglong returned, jogging all— He headed straight for Song Haochen. Cousin, Song Haochen caught him with a raised hand. Weren't you supposed to be greeting guests outside? Why are you back? Zhenglong huffed in front. I ran into that guy. It's one thing for my dad but he had to do it right in front of him. It's driving me crazy. Song Haochen looked puzzled. Which guy? The CEO of that company. What's his name? Lu Yan? Zhenglong pouted. Does this guy have it out for— It's like I'm constantly living in his shadow. As soon as he finished, Song Haochen and the Su siblings near immediately froze. Muyen? Suze's face darkened with hatred. He's here too? Yeah, Zhenglong nodded. My dad practically idolizes him. How could he not invite him over? Miss Su noticed Song Haochen's expression and quickly grabbed his hand. She reassured him softly. Don't take it, just treat him as if he's invisible. My heart is only with you. As soon as she finished, gasps and exclamations erupted from the crowd. Miss Su instinctively turned her. When she saw me walking toward her, she froze in place. She had always known I was handsome, but she never expected me to look this— Suze, standing beside her, yanked— Sis! Miss Su snapped out of it. She quickly averted her gaze, but her peripheral couldn't help but steal another glance at me. Song Haochen noticed her distracted demeanor and subconsciously clenched his eyes darkened with hostility. After the initial surprise, several business people holding champagne approached. In high society, banquets like these are often networking events for due to my company's leading in the industry. And the fact that I rarely appear at such— I was quickly surrounded by a crowd shortly after my arrival. Zhenglong glanced at the crowd encircling, then at the ignored Song Haochen. and couldn't help but step forward indignantly. Anyone who didn't know better might, those who don't might assume it's Mr. Lu's. Mr. Lu's presence overshadows, is he disrespecting the Jung fan, or is he just a show-off? He deliberately raised his voice, causing the entire banquet hall to fall. The people around me turned their heads, confused by Zhenglong's outburst. Just then, someone exclaimed, "Isn't that Director Su from the company?" The statement caused an uproar. The connection between me and Su, it's no secret among the gentlemen of the upper, especially yesterday. It caused quite a stir on Weibo. Loving gossip is human nature. Even those in prestigious families are no. For a moment, everyone's instinctively focused on Mrs. Su and me. Meanwhile, a young man standing beside me couldn't help. "Director, huh? Didn't you see yesterday's Weibo? This person has already been kicked out by Mr. Lu." Mrs. Su was publicly embarrassed. Her face instantly turned. The slight fondness she had just shown vanished completely. Suze could never stand being mocked. She immediately placed her arm around Song Hao and declared firmly, "We should thank Mr. Lu for his grace. Otherwise, how could my sister have reconciled with Haochen?" This action and remark quickly drew everyone's attention to Song Haochen. Someone couldn't resist asking out of curiosity, "You're talking about my cousin." Zhenglong immediately stepped forward to introduce him. "A scion of the Song family, one of the top 10 families." "The Song family?" someone exclaimed in surprise. "Of course." Zhenglong gave them a disdainful look. "And you probably don't know this, but my cousin-in-law is also from one of the top 10, the Su family. She and my cousin are a perfect match. So what if someone is capable? They're still an orphan with unknown parent." I clenched my champagne glass tightly, my gaze falling on the faces of the people. With a smile, I raised my champagne glass. "Ms. Ju truly matches Mr. Song. After all, an illegitimate daughter is still—" As soon as I said this, a wave of murmurs erupted on the spot. Prestigious families care most about the distinction between branches. Is like compared to an orphan of unknown, an illegitimate child is even. They were originally puzzled. If Miss Su is from the Su family, why would she be working under me? Now it suddenly dawned on them. Su Lingyan's face looked as if she'd been slapped. "What's wrong?" The curve of my lips wide. "Did I say anything incorrect?" Suze, with reddened eyes, was about to, but Zhenglong pulled him. After all, he still cared about maintaining. He didn't want the situation to spiral. After all, his father was still out. "Defaming your ex is not exactly classy behavior." Song Haochen, with an air of composure, stepped forward. "I know you still can't let go, but since the two of you have already parted, you should at least leave each other some dig. Don't you agree?" Song Haochen's tone was his composure truly admirable. My smile remained unchanged. "But if I'm not mistaken, since I came here, I haven't actively caused trouble for any. When Mr. Zheng charged at me and insulted me with his words, what were you doing? Why didn't you remind him to maintain his composure?" Song Haochen's face stiffened. "Enough." Zhenglong shielded Song Haochen behind him. "I think, Mr. Lu, you should quit being a CEO. Your sharp tongue would make you a great comedian. But don't you think you're acting a bit petulant right now? Or as my cousin suggested, perhaps you still have lingering feelings for my—" As he spoke, he seemed to realize something. "Didn't you say you have a new girlfriend? Why didn't you bring her today?" Zhenglong thought my so-called girlfriend was either or far inferior to Miss Su. He smugly waited for me to feel, but he failed to notice the sudden change in the Su. I looked at Zhenglong with a smile, feigning ignorance of the undertone. "She couldn't make it." "Couldn't make it or not presentable enough?" I replied ambiguously. This only fueled Zhenglong's arrogance. Even someone as busy as Mr. Lu could find the time. "Yet your new girlfriend is either unavailable—" I savored those words, unable to suppress a laugh. "Mr. Zheng seems to know more about my girlfriend than I do. Stop pretending. If she's truly presentable, let her come." Zhenglong faltered under my laugh, but he didn't back down. "I heard Mr. Lu used to bring Lin Yanji everywhere he went. But now, with a new girlfriend, he's keeping her hidden. Even if my sister-in-law isn't, she's still from a prestigious family. Mr. Lu, could it be that heartbreak has led you—" As his words fell, everyone turned to look at me, eager for— At this point, they too became curious about my new girl, especially since my behavior seemed somewhat of— Just then, the sound of high heels clicking on the floor echoed. It was accompanied by a woman stifling her laugh. Someone said, "Mr. Lu being with you is a sign of him lower." Hearing this voice, most people present were stunned. Meanwhile, the Su siblings turned pale. Yun Mengyao walked up to me nonchalantly, took my arm, and said with feigned grievance, "You've been provoked this much and didn't even mention my— Am I really that unpresentable?" I looked at her intently. "Why are you here so early? Is your meeting over?" Yun Mengyao glanced around and said, "The meeting can wait. If my boyfriend is being bullied, I'm afraid I might lose control and buy out everyone here." If anyone else had said that, the crowd would have sneered. But the fact that it was Yun Mengyao changed the moment Yun Mengyao walked in, the atmosphere in the room shifted entirely. Yun Mengyao, after all, was overseeing her. Even the business tycoons present stood in awe of her. Many of them had seen her face before. But who could have told them that the girlfriend they thought Mr. Liu could was actually Yunmeng, and her attitude towards Mr. Liu left everyone utterly stunned. After a long silence, the room erupted into chaos. Mr. Liu's girlfriend turned out to be Yunmeng. What a well-kept secret. I thought someone like Miss Yun, even if she were in a relationship, would remain. But look at her attitude towards Mr. Liu. And Zhenglong just said he had lowered and had an unpresentable. How laughable. An illegitimate daughter cannot compare to the eldest Su Lingyan, who was beyond pale. Yet she couldn't utter a single rebuttal. In the past, she could rely on to act arrogantly in front of Yun Mengyao. But now without me, she realized she was nothing in front of this person. Zhenglong's face turned pale and flushed, but most of all, he was in disbelief. Even more shocked was Song Hao Cheng, who had hardly spoken. Outsiders only know about the 10 great families, but no one understands better someone born and raised in the imperial city. The higher the family ranking, the more significant the gap. Among the 10 families, only the Xia family can rival the Yun family. Even the Ji family, ranked third, is worlds apart from these two families. Moreover, Yun Mengyao is the only daughter of the Yun family who had her in his old age. She is deeply cherished by everyone. Someone like her is beyond his imagination. While everyone had their own thoughts, Suze suddenly let out a cold laugh. You don't think that just because two people, they can reach a happy ending, do you? Everyone present was stunned. They all turned their heads to look. Even the Song family cares about the origin. Do you think the top family in the country would disregard lineage? Suze looked at me mockingly and continued, do you think the top family would accept someone from an... His words caused many people to secretly agree. However, with Yun Mengyao and me present, few dared to express it. Only Zhenglong, fearless, chimed in, people should know if they are a good match. Getting someone interested is nothing. If their parents disapprove, you'll still be... You seem to know more about my parents than I do, Yun Mengyao said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Whether I pass their test or not is up to me. And you dare speak like this? Do you have a death wish? Suze and Zhenglong shrank their necks. What are you going to do? Yun Mengyao raised an eyebrow and gave a Zhang Ting immediately under and led the people behind her forward. They grabbed Suze and Zhenglong. Slap! The crisp sound of slaps echoed. No one reacted at first. It wasn't until Suze's cries of pain that Su Lingyan rushed over desperate. What are you doing? Zhang Ting's usual casual demeanor disappeared. Her sharp gaze was like a freshly sharpened. Miss Su, if you can't control your own mouth, a little punishment is deserved. If you interfere, the punishment won't stop at their faces. Understood? Su Lingyan clenched her fists tight, her eyes red with fury. It wasn't that she cared so much about Suze. Yun Mengyao's action completely trampled on her dignity. Compared to Su Lingyan's struggle, Song Haocheng acted as if he didn't hear Zhenglong's scream. He stood silently to the side, trying to minimize. For a moment, the entire banquet hall fell silent. Only the sound of slaps and cries echoed through until both their faces were accompanied by an angry roar at the door. What are you doing? Yu Mengyao finally ordered them to stop under my... Zhenglong's eyes were swollen. When he saw Zheng Guocheng, he threw himself into his arms. They hit me. They dare to hit me on our own turf. You must avenge me. Zheng Guocheng, though usually meek, became furious at the sight of his son's swollen face. Miss Lin, you must give me an explanation for this. Yu Mengyao remained calm and composed. Instead of asking me, why don't you ask your precious son what he just said? Zheng Guocheng looked at Yu Mengyao and me with hesitation, then turned to glare at Zhenglong. From the moment Yu Mengyao arrived, he was already aware of their relation. He still vividly remembered Zhenglong. If his son had said in front of Yu Mengyao, he feared even he could. Zhenglong, feeling a bit guilty, still couldn't swallow his anger. He retorted at Zheng Guocheng enraged. No matter what I said, he had no right to treat me this way. Besides, was I wrong? Lu Yan, an orphan, is unworthy of becoming a eunuch. Hearing this, Zheng Guocheng's face turned. However, before he could react, a cold and indifferent voice, if even a Xia family young master isn't worthy of, then who exactly is? Everyone turned their heads upon hearing, only to see Xiaowan Ning entering. The eldest daughter of the Xiaowan Ning strode in confidently. Inside the bank, many people murmured in surprise at her. Unlike Yu Mengyao, who often stayed at the Sheng, Xiaowan Ning had always resided in the imperial. Few people here truly recognized, but not entirely no one. A wave of exclamations erupted in the crowd. The young master of the even Yu Mengyao was taken aback. She recalled Xiaowan Ning that her younger brother was only half. Looking at me, calm and unsurprised, she couldn't help but feel suspicious. Xiaowan Ning, however, didn't care about the crowd. The moment the paternity test results came out, her heart nearly burst with excitement. She wanted to rush over. Those near the door, automatic. Xiaowan Ning quickly walked to my side. She pulled me into her embrace, saying, I finally found you. Following her, Shen Bingbing, the paternity test results are out. Congratulations, Mr. Liu. The expressions of those present were no one had expected to witness so many dramatic events. I was tightly embraced by Xiaowan Ning, feeling somewhat uncomfortable. Although she was my biological sibling, we hadn't met often before. Sensing Xiaowan Ning's trembling I couldn't bear to push her away. I could only helplessly. Sure enough, Yu Mengyao's face was as cold as, but she didn't dare make a move. After all, this was her sister-in-law. Zhang Ting whispered timidly into Yu Mengyao's ear. If Mr. Liu is the your love life might face everyone knows the three sisters of the Xia family are over. A child stolen at birth is, but for 19 years, the Xia family never gave up. The reward kept, and the three sisters almost had missing person posters. It's the same disappearance, but their father never got such. They didn't even bother looking for him. That shows how much status he holds. Yu Mengyao shot Zhang Ting a vicious glare. Can't you see my heart? It was the same disappearance. But their father never got this kind of. They didn't even bother looking for it. This shows how highly regarded he is in the. Yu Mengyao shot Zhang Ting a vicious glare. Shut up! Can't you see my heart is already. This busybody still dares to remind me. By now, most people had a rough understanding of the situation. Those who didn't had already and learned about Xiaowan. For a moment, the venue was abuzz with heat. Su Zhe and Zheng Long both felt their face, whether it was from the beating or the mockery from the crowd, was Zheng Guozhang, having offended both was deeply uneasy. Most importantly, the Zheng family had plans on a project in the Shengxi. After calming down a bit, Xiaowan Ning finally let me go, her gaze subtly drifting to you. It was a look that clearly promised to settle scores later. Then she turned to Zheng Guochang. Yesterday, I reviewed the new project plan for the branch company. It seems Mr. Zheng is also Zheng Guochang's heart sank. His face began twitching uncontrollably. Miss Xia, this isn't. Xia Wanning raised her hand. You should understand what I mean. The Xia family will never cooperate with a Consider yourself warned. Though he had anticipated this result, hearing it from Xia Wanning faced. Zheng Long, realizing he nervously tugged on his but Zheng Guochang slapped him in frustration. It's all your fault. I thought since you lost your mother, I'd spoil you a little more, but I ended up raising a lawless brat. Xia Wanning had no interest in others' family. She turned her attention to Su Linyan, her brother. The three of them shivered under her gaze. Song Haochen, in particular, felt a chill down his. It was said that the eldest daughter of the, but everyone also knew she had her long-lost younger brother. So the moment he realized I was the Xia family, he began desperate. If he had ever done anything inappropriate, what he did shouldn't have been too excessive. Xia Waning's gaze at the Su siblings was as cold as a wind. On my way here, I looked into Miss Su in order to return to this. You deceived and exploited my brother, using his efforts as a stepping. You truly are remarkable. Even though Xia Waning was, her words still carried an innate elegance and but the calmer she appeared, the more unsure Su Linyan became of her intention. Su Zhe stepped forward, shielding Su Linyan. His swollen, blood-stained mouth mumbled, "What do you want?" Even if it was it was Lu Yan who approached my sister first. If you don't believe me, he pointed at me as he spoke. Xia Wanning ignored his suggestion to question. She simply continued, I dislike getting so there's no need for you to be. Besides, my brother realized everything you took from him has already been returned untouched. I'm not going to completely destroy two stray dogs. The Su siblings collectively sighed in relief. But the next moment, Xia Wanning added, however, if you're hoping to return to forget it. She turned her gaze to the silent Song Haochen beside her. You want to marry into the Song? Fine. But only if the Song patriarch agrees to take on the before you succeed in the Song family will already be erased. Then we'll see if the Su family heads still acknowledge. The crowd collectively gasped. Song Haochen felt as though he had been struck. Although Xia Wanning's words were directed at Su, he knew they were also indirectly targeting him. If he denied Su Linyan any opportunity, perhaps the Song family could still be. Meanwhile, the Su sibling Xia Wanning was clearly cutting off any path for her words. She intended to sever their ties completely. With that, Xia Wanning, without considering the expressions of the reaching out to hold me, with a gaze so doting it could drown. Xiaoyan, shall we go? That sudden change of expression made the onlookers click their tongues. I looked at him seriously, still unable to recover from what just happened. Since reincarnation, I hadn't experienced the feeling of being with family. Before Aunt Fang, though she cared for me more than others, there were so many kids in the. It was hard for her to focus much attention on me. Looking back, this is the first time I've felt the support of having family. It's not bad actually, but this name Xiao Yan. It seems only Fang Yi used to call me that. Even Yun Mengyao calls me Lu Yan. Lost in thought, Xia Wanning called me again. Her eyes filled with concern. I quickly snapped out and immediately said, let's go. Things had escalated. It was impossible for me to stay and attend any. Xia Wanning and I were leaving. Almost as if we had come. It was impossible for Yun Mengyao to stay after leaving the Zheng. I was about to introduce Yun Mengyao to Xia Wanning when Xia Wanning had already turned around. Smiling sarcastically, she said, so, the boyfriend Miss Yun was talking about is my brother. Yun Mengyao's brows twitched her lips curling slightly. Wanning Jie. Xia Wanning narrowed her eyes. Her gaze hinted at danger. You're not married yet. Who allowed you to call me Jie? Yun Mengyao looked at her pitifully. Wanning Jie? Xia Wanning seemed to want. When her phone started ringing, she glanced at the caller ID and said to me, it's Mom calling. Still feeling a bit awkward. Xia Wanning spoke to me in a sisterly tone. I was even less to mentally handle a conversation with this. I consciously ignored Xia Wanning's subtle hint. I just nodded and said, you can. Xia Wanning sighed. She walked aside and swiped it. However, it wasn't Mom's voice she heard. It was her second sister. Shaqingning, you won't answer my calls unless I use Mom's phone, huh? Xia Wanning's lips curved slightly. She replied without any hesitation. You kept calling all day. I got annoyed and blocked you. Xia Qingning was speechless. Next to her, Yang Wanyun anxiously reminded. Quick, ask your big sis. Has the paternity test result come back? Is he really your brother? Xia Qingning, also eager to know about her, had to put aside her complaints for now. Mom heard what you said, right? What's the result? Is he our brother? Xia Wanning turned her head to glance at. He is. Xia Qingning jumped off the sofa in excitement. Housekeeper, prepare the helicopter. Yang Wanyun, who also heard Xia Wanning's answer, burst into tears of joy. We finally found him. Heaven has eyes. We finally found your brother. Meanwhile, Xia Wanning was already aware that Xia Qingning, upon hearing, would rush over without hesitation. You all stay. Our brother seems not quite ready to accept. If you all come, you might. Let me handle him first. Then I'll bring him back. Xia Qingning said excitedly. Are you sure you can do it? If not, let me handle. Xia Wanning replied coolly. Don't forget, I'm still your big sister. During Xia Wanning's call, Yun Mengyao held my hand tightly. Your sister doesn't seem to want us to be. I tried to comfort her by holding her hand back. She might just be overwhelmed from finding me sudden, but no matter what, I will always stand by your side. Yun Mengyao hugged me tightly. A sly smile flashed in her eyes. As long as you don't leave, I'll do anything. On the side, Zhang Ting rolled his eye. Why did he feel his young lady was acting coquettish? Meanwhile, back at after hanging up the phone, Xia Qingning looked at her mother and asked, we found my brother. Are we really not going to visit? She suspected Xia Wanning was just making excuses, claiming she wanted some time alone with her brother to bond first. Li Jie is right. Although Yang Wanyun was eager to meet her son, she had her concerns after listening to Xia Wanning. Your brother was taken away at birth. Who knows how much he has suffered over the years? He must blame us for not protecting him. Let's not pressure him too much. Let him process this reality first. Once your eldest sister has talked it, we can meet him then. We've waited so many years. A little more time won't hurt. Seeing their mother's firm stance, Xia Qingning could only nod. Just then, Yang Wanyun pulled up the phone number of her third daughter. Xia Qingning immediately reached out to stop her. Are you calling Xiao Xiao? Xia's mother asked in confusion. Why? Your sister doesn't know the news yet. Xia Qingning smirked mischievously. If you tell her about our brother returning, aren't you afraid she'll fight for attention? Xia's mother chuckled. Your sister misses her brother as much as you. How could she compete for attention? Xia Qingning continued to playfully persuade. Aren't you afraid she'll monopolize him? You know how clingy she is. The moment he comes back, she'll probably claim him for herself. How are we supposed to bond with him then? This time, Xia's mother's expression turned serious. After a moment of thought, she nodded. You have a point. Xiao Xiao has finally taken an interest in something. Let's let him experience the world a bit first. At the banquet, such a well-planned event turned into. Zheng Guochang had lost the mood to continue. After we left, he politely saw off the remaining guests one by one. Then, without sparing another at the troublemakers, he went upstairs. Zheng Long looked at Suze's swollen face and knew his own fate wouldn't be any better. However, when he saw Song Haochen's perfectly neat appearance, he suddenly realized something. Cousin, when those people were bullying me, what were you doing? Su Lingyan, at least, had tried to stand up for Su, and Zheng Long had also taken the blows for Song. But when it came to his turn, Song Haochen just stood by idly. Song Haochen's face turned awkward. I didn't ask you to say those, and that was Yun Mengyao. I just wanted to help you, but I couldn't do much. Enough, Zheng Long shouted at him. Even if you're afraid of Yun, you could have at least called for. I must have been blind to help you. With that, he turned and left. In the blink of an eye, only Song Haochen, Su Lingyan, and Suze were left. As Song Haochen was about to leave, Su Lingyan grabbed his wrist. Just hearing his name, Song Haochen understood what she wanted to say. Linyan, can you let me calm down first? Su Lingyan felt a pang of even though she already had a feeling, she still wanted to try to hold on. We've overcome so much together. Why are you afraid of Xia Waning's threats? Suze chimed in. Yeah, brother-in-law, she's probably just bluffing. The Song family's foundation, it's not something she can topple with words. Enough! Song Haochen shook off Su Lingyan's hand. Can you all stop pressuring me? If it's just about the banquet, my dad might still be willing, but to gamble the entire Song family as a bet. Not only would he refuse, I wouldn't agree either. Before I came to Shenxi, my dad had already picked a school abroad for me. He wanted me to further my... Let's break up. After saying that, I didn't look at their reaction. I turned and walked out. After Song Haochen left, Suze stomped his foot in frustration. Really, not a single reliable one. Then he turned to Su Linyan and asked, so what do we do now? Can we really never return to the Su? Su Linyan said nothing, her face shifting between light. No one knew how long it took, but she finally clenched her fists in determination. Now this is the only road left. Because of Xia Wanning's presence, we had no choice but to go to my residence in Deepening instead of Yu Mengyao's mansion. Looking at the intricately decorated Xia Wanning felt a wave of relief. She was glad I was doing well now, but she dared not imagine how I had lived before. However, when she saw Yu Mengyao following, her guard was immediately up. Just drop her off at home. Why are you coming in? This time, before Yu Mengyao, I held her hand and looked at Xia Wanning. I think it's necessary to clarify. Yu Mengyao is my girlfriend. We are adults now, and we have the right to decide how we... If any family tries to interfere with our relationship, causing her to feel, then Miss Xia, please leave. As you can see, I can live well without family too. Yu Mengyao felt a mix of emotions. She didn't fully understand why she had always this relationship with a mix of fear and caution. When my family appeared, she began scheming. It's because he feared but now, I've shown that I don't even care about it. Doesn't that mean his position in my heart is more important? If Yu Mengyao's current mood is like a warm spring day, then Xia Wanning's mood right now is the depths, especially the way I called her Miss. It left her feeling cold to the core. But beyond her heartbreak, she felt even, as far as I know, didn't you just break up with Su? How is it possible that your feelings for this person have become so deep? I don't expect others to the sudden shift in my affect. After all, the idea of past lives and present, even Yu Mengyao is unaware of it. So how could I explain it to anyone else? In my past life, Yu Meng gave me her only life-saving medicine. She never forced me to do anything. After my death, she dragged her broken body to avenge the enemies I couldn't defeat. Then she died alongside. And where were my relatives? They didn't come to recognize me, although in this life, for some, they found me. But their place in my heart could never compare to Yu Mengyao's. I'm sorry? I looked at Xia Wanning and said the same thing. If you want to acknowledge me, please respect my choices. Xia Wanning took a deep breath and said humbly, Sister was wrong. Don't be angry. I wasn't deliberately trying to make... Does that mean, as long as I don't interfere with you, you'll agree to accept me as family? I hesitated for a moment, thinking to myself how adept at using her words. Seeing my hesitation, Xia Wanning grew anxious. Xiaoyan, you know too well that Mengyao cannot stay in Shenxi forever. If you want to be with him, sooner or later, you'll have to... Yu Mengyao was stunned. Was she being used by Xia Wanning? This person just complained about, but immediately used her to convince me. Such a manipulative move. I curled my lips slightly. I had already considered this. Moreover, my company is not what it... Most of the core staff are not locals. They're outsiders. I've long planned to move the company when the timing was right to help Su Linyan manage Tianyu more conveniently. I relocated the company to the capital. In this life, both his family and lover are in the capital. I have no reason not to At this, I nodded. Give me some time to handle the company's relocation. Hearing my affirmative response, Xia Wanning excitedly hugged me tightly. Sister will help. Yu Mengyao's face darkened upon. When Xia Wanning let go, she possessively held onto my arm. Since there's no housekeeper, you can find a guest room for your... After saying that, she pulled me up. Xia Wanning watched our backs, feeling a bit melancholic. However, she quickly shook off and regained her composure. Right now, he feels distant from me, but once we develop a bond, my position as his sister, I'll make sure that girl regrets it. Yu Mengyao had no idea that she was already resented by her future. As soon as we entered the bedroom, and kissed me fiercely. I shook my head and dodged her. What's wrong with you? Yu Mengyao lowered her head and nuzzled in. I'm feeling upset and jealous. I was taken aback. That's my sister. Yu Mengyao pouted, but she's still a woman. I raised my hand and ruffled her hair. Then, like coaxing a child, I leaned in and feeling better now? Yu Mengyao licked her lips, secretly delighted but still putting on I couldn't help but understand her, but I decided to indulge her completely. So what do you want? Yu Mengyao looked at me shyly. do what I've wanted to do since last. The next morning, I unusually wanted to sleep in, but a series of urgent knocks interrupted my rest. Yu Mengyao wanted to get up and open, but I pushed her back under the cover. I didn't even need to guess who. I could argue with Xiao Wanning, but I couldn't keep a calm heart letting Yu Mengyao open. After quickly tidying myself up, I opened the door and asked Xiao, "What's the matter?" Xiao Wanning, forgetting what she stared at me in disbelief. "What did you just call me?" I didn't quite understand her excitement. Yesterday, since I've decided to acknowledge my family, there's no need to keep, otherwise, no title would fit. Thinking this through, I called her sister again without hesitation. The next moment, I was pulled into her arms. Xiao Wanning's voice was full of excitement, and "Your sister is here." I sighed helplessly. Why do people love hugging so much? Even though her embrace carried no malice, it couldn't hide the fact that my girl gets jealous. I didn't even need to look back to know that the one in bed. I patted Xiao Wanning on the shoulder. "Sister, what brings you here?" Remembering her purpose, Xiao Wanning let me go, her expression turning serious. "Su Minghui is dead." I was shocked. What? Summer Wanning thought I didn't know who the other, so she explained a bit more. Su Minghui is the only son of the Su family's main wife. He is also Su Lingyan's half-brother. Of course, I know who Su Minghui is, but his death was unexpected to me. After all, in the previous life when that person was still alive, moreover, I had even called him a few days ago. Suddenly hearing of his death, it's impossible not to feel. Thinking about it, I reached out and grabbed. How did he die? The Su family had tried to cover it. Summer Wanning held my hand, conveying her warmth. But there's no wall that doesn't leak air. What can be confirmed for now is he died on a woman in a clubhouse. The Su family head probably felt it was, so he tried to suppress the news. Although she spoke subtly, anyone could understand what she meant. Su Minghui was idle every day, indulging in pleasure. It was only a matter of time before his body. But in his previous life, he wasn't at the brink of death. Unless Yun Mengyao, who had just changed clothes. She first glanced at then said to Xie Wanning, "You just cut off Su Lingyan's return," and Su Minghui died right after. This matter is not that simple. Summer Wanning, before you arrived, but this matter, even the Su family head worked hard. He even buried the body overnight. It will be difficult to find evidence. At this point, she paused and looked at me. Su Lingyan and her two sons have now been brought back to the Su. Ever since I heard about Su Minghui's death, I predicted this would happen. For the Su family head, the most important thing is still the Su family, even if Su Minghui died disgracefully. Right now, only Su Lingyan can inherit the Su. Summer Wanning saw my furrowed brow, raised her hand gently to smooth them out. Anyone who has bullied you, elder sister, will never let. Even if they return to the Su family, they'll only drag the Su family down with them. Once we return to big sister will help you deal with the Su family. I shook my head, raising my hand to lower Summer Wanning. Sister, don't get involved in whether it's dealing with Su Lingyan or the Su. I'll handle it myself. Yesterday, it was the first time I felt the support of family, and with so many people present, when Summer Wanning used threats to cut off Su Lingyan's path, I didn't stop her. But when it comes to revenge, it's more interesting to do it yourself, especially for such deep-seated. Otherwise, what's the point of my rebirth? Although I didn't anticipate Su Minghui's death, if Su Lingyan was really that easy to, I wouldn't have fallen into his hands. And thinking of this, a hint of excitement curled at my lips. It turns out I was worried Su Lingyan, but now it seems there's. Summer Wanning hesitated and asked, "Xiaoyan, is your issue with Su Lingyan really just about feelings?" I returned the question, kicking the ball back to her. "What do you think?" Before she could answer, I sneered coldly. As long as I'm here, he can forget about getting what he wants. Even if he gets it, he'll cough it up sooner or later. Summer Wanning turned to look at Yun Mengyao, only to find the other was equally confused. But both of them knew the grievances between Su Lingyan were far from simple. Yet since I didn't explain, they couldn't press me. In the following days, I focused on completing the company transfer. A week later, after handling related matters, I returned to the estate with Summer Wanning and Summer's mother, and Summer Qingning knew I was so excited they couldn't sleep. During the day, they stayed home, not checking the clock every few seconds. By 1 p.m. in the afternoon, the roar of a helicopter landing came from the garden, instantly injecting energy into Summer's mother. They quickly perked up and headed toward the garden with renewed vigor. Summer Qingning's height and long legs proved advantageous, allowing her to outpace Summer's mother. Ignoring her mother's disgruntled expression, Summer Qingning strode brisk, her eyes locked onto me like radar, and she headed straight. I had just stepped off the hell and hadn't yet taken in my surroundings when a faint, elegant perfume breathed. Summer Qingning rushed and tightly embraced me in her arms. Second sister finally gets. Hearing her call me second, my reflexive grappling move loosened slightly. At the same time, I couldn't help but wonder, is the Summer sister's love for hugging hereditary? Yun Mengyao watched our tight embrace, clenching her fists again. Yang Wanyun walked across the soft lawn, arriving. Yan Yan, let mom see. Before I arrived, Summer Wan Ning had already told them my name, since my parents hadn't had the before I was taken away. They simply started calling me that. Summer Wan Ning glanced at Summer Ching. Didn't you hear what mom said? And you're squeezing Yan Yan too tightly. Only then did Summer Ching. The moment Summer's mother saw my tears uncontrollably rolled down her cheek. Her trembling hands reached out to touch my face. I'm your mother. A strange feeling stirred in my. I thought I wouldn't be able to feel anything. For family who were, but seeing this woman cry in front, I suddenly wanted to reach out and perhaps this is the bond of blood. Seeing my silence, Summer's heartbroken, stepped forward to hug me. Sorry, Yan Yan, mom didn't protect you. You must have suffered a lot over the years. Feeling a bit overwhelmed, I gently patted her back. It's okay, I've been fine. Although I was young when I was in the orphanage, there wasn't much room to grow. Life was relatively hard. But as I grew older, I learned to be self-sufficient. Hearing my response, Summer's mother then burst into tears of joy. But she couldn't quite believe my words about doing. She thought I was just comfort and felt heartache and guilt for my understanding. In the past, mom was powerless, but now that we've found you, mom will definitely make it up to you. And so will I. Summer Chingning took out a prepared gift, placing it in my hand. Here's a secondary card. No limits, no password. Swipe it as you like. She had racked but couldn't think of a. After all, everything practical was already provided by some. So a gift, what's better than endless funds? Summer Chingning thought, even if, how about this? Every time my little brother buys something, as his second sister, I'll still hold some sway. But just as her dream was blooming, the card was handed back immediately. I shook my head. No need. I don't lack money. Summer Chingning and pushed the card back to me again. Why so formal with your. I sighed and returned it. I'm serious. I really don't lack money. Even if you give it to me. Summer Chingning was then glared at Summer Wan. She suddenly thought that Wan, after all, her sharp older sister wouldn't. Her anger surged, and she turned to glare at her. This idiot came up with such a dumb. Zhang Ying swallowed. How could the scheming eldest sister not? In an instant, Qingming's chest swelled with anger. She glared fiercely at her assistant, Zhang Ying. It was this fool's stupid idea. Zhang Ying swallowed nervous, feeling that her head was in imminent danger. Mother Xia opened the wooden box she had been holding in her. She took out a jade pendant and placed it around. This is a gift from mom for our first meeting. Yan Yan, you must wear it off. I looked down at the pendant with ancient, and a sense of unease welled up inside me. Living a reincarnated life with such an absurd and bizarre had happened. I started to believe in some things. In my past life, I visited, if I'm not mistaken, the jade pendant Mother Xia contained her blood and hair strands. It could help ward off disasters, but all misfortune would transfer to her. I raised my hand to take off the pendant, but Mother Xia quickly stopped me. Please don't refuse, Mom, okay? Looking into Yang Wanyun's pleading eyes, I felt the pendant in my hand grow. After a long moment, I muttered hoarsely, okay, I promise to keep it safe and make sure not to hurt. Compared to the warm family of Yun Mengyao seemed like an outsider. Since Mother Xia and Xia Qingming arrived, their gaze hadn't left my face. Even when they noticed her, they likely thought she was just. At this moment, a cheerful voice, is my son-in-law back? Where is he? Upon hearing, Xia Qingming's brows furrowed. They turned their heads to see Yun Mengyao's mother, walking over with her husband. Wu Shuman ignored her own daughter and walked straight toward me with unwavering. This must be my son-in-law, right? Such a handsome young man. Xia Qingming pulled her brother, warily watching Wu Shuman and her husband. My brother just came back? How is he your son-in-law? How is he your son-in-law? I just realized I forgot to introduce. Yun Mengyao quickly walked past Xia Qingling to grabbed his hand and took a step forward. You all should know him. I'd like to introduce him formally. He's my boyfriend. Wu Shuman immediately broke into a see? Even without us adults matchmaking, Xiaoyan and Mengyao still ended up together. This must be destiny. He must have known about our relationship before. Otherwise, why would he call him his son? With that thought, he opened a box. Inside was a ring of ancient engraved with a mysterious totem. He took my hand and tried to slip it on, cheerfully muttering, "Here, a gift for my daughter-in-law." Seeing this ring, which symbolized the Yun family's leg, Xia Qingling immediately pulled me away. Xiaoyan, you're only 19. Why would you make such a... Let me tell you, she continued, women are... Don't let her deceive you. The girls present all fell silent, and I was left speechless. I retorted, aren't you a woman too? Xia Qingling didn't feel the... Sacrificing her pride, she explained, I'm a woman. I understand. I'm warning you because I don't want you to get hurt. Understand? Yang Wanyun rolled her eyes at Xia Qingling. All right, not everyone is like you. Just look at Xia Wanning. Her decision to marry into the Su family was a caution. If you don't restrain yourself, are you planning to let mom bury another child? Xia Qingling looked at Xia Wanning like she was a mom. Our little brother is dating someone and you're not. Did this guy change or something? Xia Wanning thought to herself. But the scene of me defending Yun Mengyao is still fresh, and after spending these few days together, I realized he's soft, not tough. Unlike Xia Qingling, he doesn't trigger land. As for Yun Mengyao, let her enjoy herself for a while. Suppressing the dark thoughts in her, Xia Wanning put on a helpless expression. But they're already together. We can't just break them up, can we? The priority now is to improve our brother's impression. Let the younger sister play the bad guy. Xia Qingling took a deep breath, ran her hand through her hair, and asked, "Are you?" Xia Mama, accustomed to the sisters' bickering, paid it no mind. Thinking of Xia Qingling's words, she walked over to Yun Mengyao's family with a Xia Qingling spoke candidly. "I hope you don't." Xiaoning, don't be so formal. Wu Shuman replied, showing no signs of display. Do I look like someone who holds grudges against? And everyone knows the three sisters are protected. It's normal for them to take some time. After a while, they'll get used to it. Xia Qingling rolled her eyes. They've only been together for a short time. Who knows? They might break up tomorrow. Shut your mouth! Yang Wanyun glared at Xia Qingling. Then she turned to Yun Mengyao's parents and said, I watched this child grow up. Her character and behavior are fine. I have no objection. Wu Shuman hugged Xia Mama happily. I knew you were the best. She acted like a young woman, but then Xia Mama's tone shifted. Xiao Yan has only just been found. He hasn't had time to bond with and the two kids are still young. We're not planning for them to marry, so you scared me. I thought you were going to. Wu Shuman patted her. Do I look like someone so unreasonable? Over the years, I've seen how much you've missed. How could I? The moment Xiaoyan comes back, take away your time. Even if they do get married, Mengyao will still live with your family. Everything has been arranged perfectly. Mengyao will also live at your house. Everything has been clearly. Yun Mengyao looked speechless. At the same time, Shimama glanced at the time. She turned to the butler and instructed, have the staff prepare the banquet. Since Xiaoyan has returned, it's time to hold a formal welcome banquet. The butler nodded immediately. Yes, madam. Yang Wanyun turned to me and asked, Yan, do you have any friends to invite? I'll have someone deliver the invitation. I was silent for a moment, knowing that such things were inevitable. I don't have many friends in the capital, and I'm not sure if they'll be I'll call them myself to ask. Yang Wanyun nodded. Xiao Wenning took out her phone. I'll contact a style. Later, I'll have Mengyao dress up as well, so she doesn't embarrass. Wu Shuman handed me a small ornate box containing the. I almost forgot. I haven't given you the. I didn't know the significance of, but from its quality, I knew it wasn't an order. Uncertain, I glanced at Yun Mengyao, who nodded at me. Xia Qingling, standing nearby, unable to stop this exchange of what holding the ring in. Wu Shuman finally felt relieved. She tugged her daughter along, smiling as she said, "We'll be back soon." After Yun Mengyao's family left, I returned to the main villa as Xia Wanning led me upstairs. Xia Qingming pulled Xia Mama aside and, Mom, why did you agree to let our brother be with Yun? You know what their family is. He trailed off, but his meaning was clear. If it weren't for this, he wouldn't risk being disliked by me. To strongly oppose their. Xia Mama's expression turned uneasy, but she still said, but Mengyao, and just like your sister said, the two of them are already together. And just like your sister said, the two of them are already. I can't bring myself to break them up. Xia Qingning remains silent, her voice filled with grit. Whether that Yun family's girl is worth depends on his performance. If he passes my test, I would even support them at the cost. But if he fails, even if Xiaoyan resents, I will definitely break them apart. At this moment, I had no idea about the conversation happening downstairs. After following Xia Wanning into her room, I was stunned by what I saw as soon as If Xia Wanning hadn't told me this was a room, I would have thought it was a whole luxury apartment. What amazed me even more was the closet full of all kinds of clothes. Given my current social status, I'm not unfamiliar with such things, but I wouldn't turn a place mainly for sleeping into something so Xiaoyan. This was decorated for. Do you like it? As the head of the entire Xia family, she now looked nothing like a high-ranking leader. She stared at her younger brother like a large, adorable pet, begging for I glanced at her with amusement. Sis, are you suggesting I should start running a. Xia Wanning couldn't help but laugh, surprised that I could joke like this. She pointed to several rows of This side is for clothes. Pick one first. The matching shoes are over there, she said, pointing to an adjacent wall. Then she glanced at her watch. I'll go check when the stylist will arrive, she said before turning and thoughtfully closing the door. On her way out, she ran into Yang Wanyun and Xia Wanning paused in her as if something had occurred to her. and looked around. Is Xiao Xiao not? That doesn't seem right. Xia Qingning folded her arms, answered seriously. I think Xiao Xiao finally took something serious, so I didn't let Mom tell him about finding his brother to avoid distracting. What do you think? They're both cunning, so how could Xia Wanning not guess Xia Qingning's little? But it suited her just fine. Xia Wanning reached out and patted Xia Qing, praising, "You're still the most thoughtful." At the same time, on the border of Huaguo, a woman in black camouflage was chewing on a blade of grass, holding a rolled-up portrait. Is it time to head to Linguo next? The man beside her nodded, his eyes full of weariness and hardship. Still no when we'll find the Duke's wife, and a man with a scarred face gulped down half a bottle of water, wiping his mouth with his hand. Doesn't the wife of the Xia family look similar? Why not take her to the Duke for Are you stupid? The man holding a gun smacked the back of his head. The Duke said he only has one son. The Xia family has, no matter how similar, they don't meet the criteria. What about that boy? The scarred man rubbed the back of his head. The boy's eyes do look a lot like those in the portrait. He had barely finished speaking when he got hit again. Are you addicted to hitting? What if you knock me senseless? The scarred man put on the fiercest, but his words were full. I'm saying, could he be the Duke's son? Why don't we get some of his hair for testing? Then are you suggesting the Duke's wife? Otherwise, how did he become the man in black camouflage, the grass in his mouth? Besides, it's only his eyes that... If we conduct a test on everyone with slight the Duke would be completely bald. The man said, unfolding the portrait. In this day and age, we're still using portraits. If we at least had a photo, it'd be easier. Let's go. Let's go. The Duke has been hit. The fact that he remembers and even some vague features. Instead of complaining here, we might as well hurry up. In the blink of an eye, the entire Xia household was servants and staff, each working busily. The banquet venue was set up in the open air. A long dining table was draped in a white cloth with various exquisite dishes arranged on a champagne tower, changing colors under the light. Vibrant fresh flowers flanked the red carpet. Stretching out from the archway, the entrance was adorned beautifully. The entire venue was brimming with a joyful atmosphere. As the scheduled time approached, luxury cars began arriving one after outside the Xia family. Prominent figures from the capital's elite. The Xia family's status was, even though the host hadn't appeared, more than half of the invited guests had. The attendees were chatting, and of course, the topic was centered around the newly returned. It's truly surprising that the Xia family managed to. Has anyone seen what he looks like? Who knows? But I think it's better not to have high expectations. Why do you say that? Just look at the He family's previous experience. The biological son they found turned out to be didn't even know how to use and reeked of poverty and inexperience. After showing him one, the He family patriarch never let him. He took Yang Zi everywhere, and this Xia boy grew up in the countryside. He's probably worse than the He families. My brother isn't as bad as everyone says. A young master in a light blue suit walked over with a glass of It's not that Dad won't let, it's just that he doesn't like crowded occasions like this. It wasn't anyone else but He family's Yang Zi and He Chaoxiong talking behind someone's back, only to be overheard. The expressions of several people present turned to. However, these people didn't seem angry. It wasn't about them after. He Chaoxiong naturally didn't. Perhaps young Master Xia isn't as bad as people are. We'll know for sure when he makes his appearance. His words seemingly defending Xia were meaningless, and instead rekindled the topic that had just died down. As everyone speculated about how rusty and pitiful the Xia family, the venue's sound system suddenly switched tune. Accompanied by Xia mother's warm yet "Thank you all for waiting." Hearing her voice, everyone turned their heads. Xia mother and Wu Shuman appeared, holding a young boy's hand. The other members of the Xia and Yun followed behind them like the social connections within the capital's elite circles were no secret. Thus, seeing the two did not surprise anyone present. However, when they saw the Xia family, everyone could no longer remain composed. Even for a long time after, the two families made the venue remain silent. The moment everyone saw him, they couldn't help but hold their breath. The crowd was dazzled for a long moment. When they finally came to their senses, the venue erupted. So this is the young master? He's so handsome. Not just his looks, his aura is unmatched. Who was it earlier that said feeling a bit slapped in the face now? Among the young men, all raised in noble families, none seemed as exceptional as amid the crowd's exclamations. Yu Meng Yao and my two sisters narrowed their eyes. Yu Meng Yao and my two sisters narrowed their eyes. Publicly singled out like this made them even more flustered. However, He Chaoxiong remained calm with a purely admiring demeanor. Looking at my strikingly that seemed almost aggressive, he smiled and young Master Xia is truly stunning. The moment you appeared, we all felt overshadowed. His words prompted someone to tease. Even our great talent feel, in terms of looks and aura, Young Master Xia, but in talent, no one in the capital can match. The young master with dyed pink hair, our brother Chao, is a grandmaster of the Gu, a personal disciple of Wen's. He became the vice president of the capital's at a young age. He doesn't rely on his looks for the surrounding people were stunned. They already knew He Chaoxiong was Wen's, but as vice president of the that was news to them. He Chaoxiong, slightly embarrassed. I was only recently elected. It's mostly thanks to the presidents and the members' encouragement. But in terms of Guqin master, I'm still far behind my teacher. Your teacher is much older? Who could compare to achieve what you have at your age is already exactly being promoted means you're Guqin's and you have to give us a performance. It's been so long since I last heard. The last time I heard you play the Guqin was at the Liang family's birth. He Chaoxiong quickly waved his hand. Today is young Master Xia's. How could I steal the spotlight? If anyone should perform, of course, if there's a performance, young Master. As he spoke, he turned to look at, but then instinctively covered his mouth, as his tone was somewhat nervous. With young Master Xia's, he must surely possess some talent. After those words, both the Yun and Xia family members looked as Xia Qingning narrowed his eyes at He Chaoxiong, then looked at Xia Liu as if amused yet angry. Big sister, have I been too easygoing lately? Even someone dares to challenge me so. When truly angry, his voice would become very soft. Thus, apart from the nearby Yun and Xia family, no one else could hear him. However, Qingning's voice carried an intense sense, like the calm before a storm. I gently held his hand to soothe and then turned to look at He Chaoxiong. My roommate is talented, but he's also most skilled in Guqin. Would this young master like to listen? Xia Qingning looked dazedly at his hand, so thrilled he didn't even hear what I said. Did my brother just hold my hand? He didn't catch it, but everyone else present heard it loud, and the atmosphere instantly became. It seemed something big was about to happen. He Chaoxiong raised an eye, but his expression remained indifferent. Young Master Xia said, I smiled. Is there a problem with? Of course not. He Chaoxiong looked as if he'd found a kindred. It's rare for me to find someone who, knowing that young Master Xia, I'm overjoyed. I wasn't planning to show off at young Master Xia's event, but hearing that you're skilled at Guqin, I couldn't help but feel Would young Master Xia be willing to spar with me? I raised an eyebrow. This man was serious. Although I was born into a noble family and my mother came from a literary lineage. When I was hailed as Jinzhong's greatest, his ancestors probably hadn't even been born yet. It was quite different from what the moment He Chaoxiong suggested a sparring, the crowd began to worry for me. After all, in their eyes, He Chaoxiong was already at a master level. Competing with him would be suicidal. They thought I would surely refuse unless I was foolish. However, in the next, they heard me say to He Chaoxiong, then I shall humbly accept. It turns out this person really doesn't know. What a waste of such a handsome face. Even Xia's mother and Wu Shuman looked at me and I gave them a reassuring look and asked, is there a Guqin in the house? Xia Wanian stammered, big sister, I didn't know you could play Gu, so I didn't prepare one. Gave him a, what use are you look, while starting to scheme. The rejected gift from the after had been weighing on his mind. Now he saw a new opportunity. With this thought, he pulled out his phone and sent Zhang Ying a text. Seeing this interaction, He Chaoxiong worried I might back out for lack. He quickly proposed, that's easy. His residence isn't too far. I can have my Guqin brought over. With that, he turned and made a phone call. Efficiency is indeed high. Before long, a Guqin with a luminous sheen was delivered. He Chaoxiong cradled the Guqin and lovingly placed it on a hastily prepared He turned to me. Young Master Xia, who will I nodded slightly. You first. Then I'll go first, He Chaoxiong said as he sat down. His fingers gently rested on the Guqin, and with a light pluck of the strings, his demeanor was all eyes focused on him, silently guessing what he would play. When the delicate sound of the Guqin emerged, everyone recognized the melody and grew excited. It was Fufei, the famous piece by Master Wen's. The melody was truly captivating. Even as someone who doesn't know much about Guqin, he has indeed improved compared to previously. I thought his performance was somewhat lacking. Now it's so much more refined. No wonder he was promoted to vice president of the capital Guqin. This piece is already difficult for most to master, but young master he has achieved. He truly lives up to being the sole disciple. As He Chaoxiong listened to the praise, his lips curved into an he played even more passionately. With such an exception, young Master Xia was under him. Once again, people began worrying. Is there even a point to this? He played his trump card, leaving no room for anyone else to shine. Young Master Xia, maybe you should. None of us will laugh at you for. After all, we all know how strong. Everyone here has experienced his skill first. Young Master Xia probably didn't know, which is why he agreed so casually. It's perfectly fine to back out now. Some kind souls advised me to even though Xia's mother and they also hoped I would give up. The calmest people in the room were Yun Mengyao and myself. Yun Mengyao was calm, because he believed I wouldn't fight a battle, even though he'd never seen me play the guk. As for me, instead of calm, I looked more dissatisfied, even furrowing my brows slightly. However, to the others, my expression seemed like I was nervous. When the piece finally ended, He Chaoxiong wiped the sweat from his forehead and exhaled lightly. Then he turned to look at me standing nearby. Young Master Xia, his words clearly influenced by the crowd's earlier remark. If you don't want to play, that's okay. Consider this piece I played today a congratulatory gift for your return. As soon as he finished, I frowned and sternly replied, first of all, you played a wrong note. Secondly, this piece needs to be played with emotion. You can't just pursue technique and fluency. The most important thing, the tone of this piece contains peace and multiple other elements. You played it too cheerfully. It lacked respect for this piece. After I said that, the whole scene went dead silent. He Chaoxiong was stunned for a moment. Then, as if amused, he said, in a slightly sharp tone, it seems young Master Xia knows to criticize a performance my master approved of as completely wrong. Without waiting for him to respond, I immediately asked, everyone has their own understanding. I won't argue about the rest for now. But you said I played a wrong note. Which note did I get wrong? Ignoring his irritation, I seriously pointed out the mistake. At the transition to the main theme, it's not the open string on 3 strings. Instead, it's a harmonic played with finger positioning. He Chaoxiong listened to my and realized I indeed understood the piece. But he still dismissed my correction. I've practiced this piece no less, or at least 800 times, except for my master. Nobody could be more familiar with it than I. Young Master Xia claims the second is an open string on 3 strings, not the harmonic you mentioned. This is my composition, and I created it in my previous life. How could I get it wrong? I sneered, wrong is wrong. Using an open string on 3 strings, listen to the tone and emotional transition. Does it fit? If Master Wen played it like he was wrong too. As soon as I finished, everyone present reacted, bursting into laughter. Did I hear that right? Young Master Xia actually quite truly, a newborn calf fears no to dare question Master Wen's performance. There's probably no one else but young Master Xia's mother and Wu Shuman exchanged, not knowing what to say. After all, they didn't understand this art, and my questioning of Wen Songhei's performance was indeed unexpected. However, Sha Qingning, who always loved stirring, spoke up. My brother said it was so it's wrong. Do you have a problem with that? She glanced around coldly, and that icy stare made everyone fall silent instantly. He Chaoxiong looked as though he wanted to laugh, but dared. Shishi stood up gracefully and said, young Master Xia, if you don't want to perform, we won't force you. There's no need for this. Moreover, about what you my master has earned his status today, and his skills are well recognized by everyone. Questioning his performance is rather disrespectful. For a moment, the gazes directed at me were filled with subtle disdain. Backing out due to fear of comparison was fine, and they had already given me an excuse. But to pick a fight over it, even using Master Wen, seemed both petty and foolish. However, though they thought so, no one dared to say it aloud. But there was always someone bold enough to add, I see why he keeps harping on this. He heard Brother Chao's excellent performance and doesn't dare go. If you're scared, just say so. No need to drag Master Wen, a top figure in Guqin. Clearly you don't know your place. As soon as he finished speaking, the Yunxia and Liang families' expressions. Meanwhile, Xia Qingning's gaze looked as if she were staring at it. Before she could respond, the steward came running in small steps. Madam, Master Wen Songye has arrived. This announcement left everyone momentarily. The crowd began whispering. When the Xia family invited Wen Song, they probably didn't expect their newly returned son to be this bold. Now this will be interesting. The murmurs among the crowd weren't loud enough to reach the Xia family, but judging by their they weren't saying anything good. Xia's mother felt uneasy. She hadn't invited Wen Song. The only one who could have invited him was. She glanced at me, seeking I gave her a reassuring look, indirectly admitting I was the one who invited him. However, Xia's mother didn't feel her son's bold statements earlier. She knew they would reach Wen Songhe soon enough. Sure enough, when Wen Songhe appeared, He Chaoxiong eagerly rushed over to greet him. Master! Wen Songhe gave him a slight nod and continued walking towards me. But before he took 2 steps, He Chaoxiong rushed up again. Master, I just played your famous piece Fufei at the band. And this, not only did he say I was wrong, but he also claimed you were. Yang Miaoyun closed her. When she reopened them, they were Xiao Wanning, and the others also looked coldly at it. It seemed no matter what happened next, they would firmly stand by my side, ensuring I wouldn't suffer any grievance. My own gaze, however, remained calm and even carrying a faint trace of mockery. He Chaoxiong thought that after his accusation, Wen Songhe would fly into a rage or harshly ridicule me. But instead, Wen Song froze for then asked nervously, what did he say was wrong? He Chaoxiong blinked, momentarily unable to. It wasn't until Wen Songhae that he stammered out my critique. What happened next left everyone watching in shock. What happened next left everyone in shock. Wen Songhae, with a serious expression, he sat down and played the disputed note. He played both variations. Then, he repeated the connecting sections of the piece multiple. Finally, a look of sudden realization appeared. Immediately, he stood up and walked past the bewildered his expression filled with nervous respect. Xie Qingning thought Wen Songhae was about to She tensed up, her aura radiating. Xie Wanning silently stepped in front of me as well. Master Wen, apologies, I remembered that part wrong. Please don't be angry. Wen Songhae, like a student who had made a mistake, slightly bowed his head. Standing cautiously in front of me, he appeared ready to accept any judgment. Xie Wanning was speechless. Xie Qingning was also at a. The other members of the Xia and Yun were equally stunned. He Chaoxiong looked utterly bewildered. The silence was so absolute, it was almost. After Wen Songhae called me master and the room was engulfed in dead silence. It wasn't until Xie Wanning cleared and stepped aside from in front of me that everyone snapped out of their shock. Then came an explosive. Did I just hear that? Master Wen called the young master of the Xia family, and judging by his reaction, he really did play it wrong. A national treasure and Guqin master, acting so deferential, I must be seeing things. The banquet hall erupted in chat while He Chaoxiong, now my disciple's disciple, looked very upset. However, more than embarrassed, his face showed disbelief. The master he idolized was now revealed to be. The world must have gone mad. Even the Xia and Yun families couldn't maintain. Just now, their anger was as their pride is now. Countless people even pinched my cheeks. Xiaoyan, you're amazing. Is my daughter aiming too high? No matter what others said, Wen Songhae did not straighten his hunched back. He seemed determined not to rest until I grabbed Wu Shuman's hand and pulled it down. With a cold expression, I looked at Wen Songhae and said, "It's nothing. Your judgment in accepting disciples is really poor. What is the tone of this piece of music? I think you should know. How could you approve of him playing it so horrible?" Wen Songhae trembled as he endured my. When I mentioned his approval of He Chaoxiong, a hint of confusion appeared on his face. He thought carefully, then shook his head like a drumstick. Master, I didn't approve of him. It's just that his previous performance he couldn't even play the piece smoothly. Now he's finally improved a bit, so I just nodded slightly. Because you once told me, even the dumbest disciple needs proper encouragement. That's how you taught me back then. He Chaoxiong looked terrified. The people present burst into laughter. Hearing the unrestrained laughter around him, He Chaoxiong wished he could find a hole to hide. When he challenged me, he was so smug. Now he only feels regret. Yet, regarding everything happening, he still felt as if he were in a dream. How old is the young master of the... How could he be the master of my... At this moment, a young master stepped forward and grabbed He Chaoxiong. Looking at the crowd, he sneered, "You bunch of fence-sitters. Enough is enough. Didn't you all join in mocking young Master Xia just now that the situation... You're all suddenly changing your tune. How shameless can you be?" Those who were laughing the loudest were speechless at it. They immediately fell silent. One by one, their expression... At this moment, he seemed to finally snap out of his shock. He stepped toward Master Wen Songhae. "You must be joking, right? Young Master Xia is so... How could you have taken him as your And this piece of yours has been famous for years now. You've always played it this... How could it be wrong just because he says..." Wen Songhae's face darkened in response. "There's always someone better out there. Do you think only you can excel at it? Why can't others be more talented? Why, you ask? Because my master made me question... Because this piece was written by him." After speaking, he turned around with a respectful... "Master, I didn't expect this rebellious disciple, but don't worry. From today on, he is no longer my disciple." Hearing this, He Chaoxiong's face turned even paler. He looked at me in disbelief. "Young Master Xia, at such... Your accomplishments in Guqin surpass even Master Wen's. Shouldn't you show us your skills to prove your ability?" As soon as he finished, the crowd collectively gasped. From the bottom of their hearts, they admired His words were clearly insinuating that Master Wen Song had staged this entire act with young Master Xia. The undertone of his remark was evident to... How could Master Wen Songhae not hear it? He immediately flew into a rage. "Are you accusing me of lying? At my level? Why would I do something to ruin my reputation?" He Chaoxiong seemed to have nothing left to lose. In the Xia family, everything is grand and unpredictable. Besides, am I wrong? Wen Songhae was so angry, he wanted to say something, but I stopped him with a look. Since I had agreed to compete, I naturally wouldn't back down. With that, I walked toward the Guqin place. "Let me play the floating bandit. I'll show you how this piece should actually be played." He Chaoxiong's face turned pale. Wen Songhae's expression instantly brightened. Excitement was evident in his eyes. To hear Master play floating bandit, it's worth being betrayed by an ungrateful wolf. He Chaoxiong, labeled as looked even more upset. But even now, he couldn't believe that I had such a high level of. Just as I was about to take my Ming suddenly stopped me. Wait a moment. We don't play on a fool's use the 1 second system. He Xiaoxiong, now labeled a fool, looked helpless. I looked at him in confusion, as if asking, where's the guqin you bought? Xia Qinglin glanced at his watch. Why is Zhang Ying so slow? As soon as he said this, panting sounds came from the back of the crowd. Second miss, I got. The crowd parted to make way. Assistant Zhang Ying ran forward. Handing the guqin, Xia Qinglin placed the guqin on the table nearby, then said, it was a bit rushed, so we bought this guqin for now. I'll have someone customize one as a proper gift later. I was about to say, it wasn't. After this who knows when I'll play again. But seeing Xia Qingming pleased and doting gaze, I swallowed my words and said, thank you, second sis. Xia Qingming stumped, relieved she had placed the guqin in time. She stared blankly. Did you just call me second sister? Before I could answer, she turned and grabbed Xia Wanning, shaking her furious. He called me second sister. Xia Wanning grabbed her hand and pulled it. Get lost. The crowd looked dumbfounded. Get lost. The crowd was utterly dumbfounded. No one expected the fiery second Miss Xia to have such a side. However, as I took my seat, their attention shifted back to me. Upon learning that I was Master Wen Songhe, they, unlike He Chaoxiong, didn't question, but their curiosity was they wondered what my guqin playing would. Although I hadn't touched I faced the expectant gazes without any hesitation. After a brief tuning, I gently plucked a string with my index. It felt as though everyone's heartstrings trembled with it. A sorrowful melody began to flow. The last remaining whispers in the room fell silent. Focusing intently, I played with precision. It was as we had traveled through time to an ancient battlefield. The late autumn, when the warriors and my father and brothers had been missing for months. With no news or calendar, all I could do as a young girl was wait at home with my mother. It was during that time, with both melancholy and hope for the soldiers, that I composed this piece. The melody began mournfully and somber, like the lament of autumn wind, gently swirling in everyone's ears. The listeners, overwhelmed by a heavy sense of oppression, felt as though the Xia family's modern garden had vanished. No one dared to breathe, as if preparing to rush to the battlefield at any moment. The melody shifted again, taking on the force of a thunderstorm. It was as if warriors were shouting before the enemy. My fingers moved across the strings so that they became a blur. Finally, the music seemed to signal something profound. The horn of victory sounded. Our troops pressed the advantage, reclaimed lost territory, and crushed the enemy. The crowd was now overwhelmed with excitement. Every face was filled with triumphant, radiating the joy of. It felt as if they were the ones who, with the final peaceful and trembling notes, I ended the guqin performance. However, the audience still maintained their original posture and expressions, clearly still immersed in the music, unable to recover. Yun Mengyao stared at me intently, as if a certain guess in her heart was about to. At the back of the crowd, there was also a gaze distinct from the others, looking over everyone's head, fixed firmly on my face. Su Lingyan knew that the Su family receiving must have happened without me knowing about it. So ever since his arrival, he tried to minimize his presence, even ensuring that his unpredictable mother and brother didn't. When he saw me making another stunning appearance, he couldn't describe how he felt inside. He never thought he would fall in love with it. Compared to power, love seemed too ethereal. So the little regret in his heart was probably because he hadn't anticipated thus losing such a powerful ally. Yet hearing the guqin I played, a surge of emotion rose in his heart, as if he had once lost something important. He remembered me saying that we had some ancient connection. At the time, he took it as a joke. Could it actually be true? Of course, I couldn't miss seeing Su Ling. I didn't care whether he embarrassed him, but kicking him out on the spot would definitely arouse, leading others to inquire and provide with unnecessary gossip. Xia Wanqing probably shared the same thought as. That's why she didn't confront him. As long as he behaved himself at the back, we could temporarily pretend he didn't. The numbness in my fingers gradually subsided. I stood up, my gaze coldly directed towards He Chaoxiong. Did you learn anything? This voice seemed to activate some kind of switch. The people on the scene suddenly snapped back, only to feel goosebumps all over their bodies. Wow, that was incredible. Absolutely breathtaking. This wasn't just music. It was like watching an epic war film set in ancient. I've never felt this level of immersion. When Master He was accusing Elder Wen of favoritism, he didn't look like an artist at all. But thanks to his persistence, we got to hear such a stunning guqin performance. Hearing the sarcastic comments from those around him, He Chaoxiong's face once again turned pale. As a member of the guqin community, he understood better than anyone except Wen Song how stunning my performance just now was. It turned out he was the one who truly didn't know his place. Yang Wanyun looked at her son with tears in her, proud of me, but also regretting missing out on so much of my growth. The people on the scene continued their endless praise. Someone exclaimed, if I'm not mistaken, Master Xia is only 19. He's just barely an adult. To achieve such renown in the guqin world, it's simply unbelievable. He's so young, he must still be in school. It was only then that she had never asked about my study. Is Xiaoyan still registered at Shenxi? After today, I'll arrange to transfer your record. I couldn't help but laugh. I've already graduated. Hearing this, my mother was momentary. The others present also paused their conversation. They looked at each other, their expressions filled with curiosity. One young master laughed while covering. Graduated at 19? Was it high school graduation, middle school, or even elementary? When I appeared, some heirs from wealthy families were all. After I displayed my talent and embarrassed, their envy turned into a strong sense of caution. Compared to them, the resources I had growing up were limited. Yet as soon as I returned, leaving these wealthy young masters at a loss. How would they maintain their standing in high society now? Seizing on a small flaw, someone immediately made a comment. Almost as soon as the words, another young master chimed in. No wonder Master Xia is so good at. Could it be that he skips school to focus solely on? If Master Xia doesn't attend and devotes all his time to playing, it would be odd if he weren't good. Even he, Chaoxiong, didn't neglect his studies, and he graduated from a prestigious, so there's really nothing to mock him about. If he focused solely on the Guqin without juggling, his level might not be any worse than some. He Chaoxiong didn't expect this turn of events. The bitterness he felt just now was immediately swept away. Although his eyes and brows were full of, he pretended to be modest and said, the university I attended isn't. Balancing Guqin and studies was really difficult. When it comes to academics, young Master Ruan, he graduated from the world's top university priestons. As he spoke, he turned to Ruan Chuming, who had remained aloof. You're saying this as if anyone could compare to Priestons is already hard, but graduating from it is how many in all of Huaguo? And this school doesn't accept connections or even in our capital's high society. Only Miss Xia, Miss Lin, and Brother Chu have been admitted on their own. Though the university you attended it's definitely better than not attending university at. He Chaoxiong felt comforted hearing this. Ruan Chuming, having been pulled into broke his silence. He Chaoxiong felt a sense of relief. Ruan Chuming, having been drawn, no longer remained silent. You guys are not bad. University is just a period of having been there, there's no. Although he said this modestly, his expression was full of arrogance. A young master chuckled. Everyone here has been to university. It seems like only masters. The young masters around us exchanged, mocking my educational background, not giving anyone else a chance. With every remark they made, the expressions on just as Xia Qingming's patience was reaching its and he was about to lash out. The butler rushed over. Old Master Tan has arrived. Summer Mom on the didn't immediately recognize which. The butler, a little confused, explained. The one who used to be before the butler could. The people in the room were already stunned. The only person in the entire who could be addressed as Old Master Tan was, aside from the one and only Chinese national who taught at Priestons, the academic giant Tan Yueson. Who else could it be? However, since he had kept a low profile and never accepted any how could he suddenly show up here? Compared to the still active Tan Yueson, who had retired to seclusion, was beyond any. After coming to her senses, Yang Miaoyun, but this person was also not invited by her. Even if she had invited him, she had no confidence. She elder, indifferent to fame, and was it another plot by Yang Miao? She looked at me in confusion, suddenly feeling like she had wasted, unable to see through a child. The people at the scene, unaware of the back, were now focused on the upcoming. The people present did not know the. Facing this heavyweight figure who is about to, they started to drum again. The Xia family truly lived. They even invited someone like Old Master, but the timing of his arrival is too significant. Young Master Xia's academic credentials, and now an academic big shot. Isn't this going to put their son in an awkward? Did you forget what Mrs. Xia just? She mentioned giving young Master Xia. Clearly, they don't know that young Master Xia. It seems that God is still fair. Those who excel in one area might be inferior to ordinary people. Listening to these drums, the young masters of the wealthy families, each of them had an expression of waiting. He Chaochang seemed to think of something. Looking at Ruan Chuming, he asked, "Isn't Old Master Tan your mentor?" "Yes," the other young master clearly thought of this. "I still remember an expert in the field of artificial, and the company that Brother Chu is also in artificial intelligence. It's a perfect match." When Tan Yueson was mentioned, the expression on Ruan Chuming's face became, it was no longer the arrogant look from Earth. "Yes, Old Master Tan is my mentor. I just didn't expect him to come." As he spoke, he turned and looked towards raising the champagne in his hand. "I haven't seen my mentor for a long time. I knew he liked peace and quiet, so I didn't want to disturb. Thanks to the Xia family's invitation, I finally have a chance to catch up with I won't say more words of thanks. I'll raise a glass to young Matt." As soon as he finished, Yang Miaoyun and the others' expressions turned solemn. The others at the scene exchanged confused. They didn't understand what Ruan Chuming was up to. He was thanking someone invited by the Shia, and yet his words seemed to suggest he was a close, making it seem like Shia family invited. Moreover, just a moment ago, everyone was they said Old Master Tan's arrival, yet he used this opportunity to, it could almost be seen as a provocation. Can young Master Xia still talk? However, I did not react angrily as everyone. I was not I didn't even pay any attention to Ruan. It seemed like even making eye was a waste of time. Ruan Chuming didn't get the he wanted from my face. He slightly furrowed his. From the very beginning, he had noticed that I was unusually calm, no matter. It seemed as if everything was under control. This composure in the face of prey, no matter how much he learned, he couldn't grasp the S. Just because I could play the P, I could ignore other personal shortcomings. Ruan Chuming couldn't understand this at all. At this moment, the sound of a cane tapping on the ground was heard. Everyone turned their head. They saw Tan Yueson wearing a tang suit, walking with one hand. When Ruan Chuming saw he immediately forgot about me. He looked slightly excited and rushed towards Tan. Long time no see. Tan Yueson stopped for a moment. He extended his hand slowly to adjust his. After a brief pause on Ruan Chuming's, he asked with confusion. Ruan Chuming looked awkward. Countless people couldn't help but laugh out. The others at the scene froze for a sec. Then they all burst into laugh. This is so funny. Is Old Master Tan really Ruan Chuming's, or is it that Ruan Chuming really graduated from Pudian? Could it be a joke? How could a mentor not recognize their hearing the uncontrollable laughter around? Ruan Chuming almost couldn't hold his smile anymore. He too wanted to know how Old Master Tan didn't. He had only graduated a few years. Didn't Tan Yueson have a good memory? He Chao Chang cleared things up. Young Master Ruan did indeed graduate from Pudian. That's not something to doubt because I have seen his graduation. Old Master Tan must be getting old, and he teaches so many students. It's normal that he can't remember. Ruan Chuming threw him a grateful glance. Then, with patience, he explained to Tan Yueson, Tan teacher, I am your student. Ruan Chuming, you supervised my graduation thesis. Don't you remember? Tan Yueson still looked confused, but he clearly didn't want to continue arguing. I'll check the student roster later. You should step aside. Without waiting for Ruan Chuming's response, he walked around him and came to. Then, with a quick change of expression, he said, after graduation, you didn't even come. Instead, you made me come all. Is this how you treat your teacher? Although his words were slight, everyone could hear the affection in his tone. As soon as Tan Yueson finished, the scene fell into a strange silence again. Mrs. Xia and the others' angry expression, they shifted to confusion. Ruan Chuming's feigned calmness broke. His face was filled with the expressions of the young masters from wealthy families. After the shock wore off, the crowd immediately Young Master Xia is also Tan Yueson. He also graduated from Pudian's. Did I hear correctly? He's 19? Now thinking back, Ruan Chuming's thanks are even funnier. He invited his own mentor, but he has no connection to him at all. Gi Chaoqiang even said Old Master Tan, so it's normal for him not to remember. Then how could Tan Yueson remember young Master? The mocking comments in the room were like hitting Ruan Chuming's face, leaving him embarrassed and speechless. But how could I possibly have graduated from? How old am I? Thinking this, he also approached and voiced his. Old Master Tan, did you mistake me? Young Master Xia is only 9. How could he have already graduated? Tan Yueson chuckled. University graduate. Xiaoyan has already earned a P. As he spoke, he gave Ruan Chuming a quick glance. You graduated from Pudian's? Don't you know that Pudian's has a youth program? The people at the scene immediately gasped. And Ruan Chuming was stunned. Of course, he knew about the youth program at Pudian. It is specifically for recruiting child Everyone in it is a genius among geniuses. If the entrance difficulty for Pudian is devilish, then the entrance standard for the youth program is hellish. It is said that since Pudian's was found, only 2 Chinese students. He wasn't surprised, but the boy in front of him was the other one. What he could think of, others naturally could. That's why there was such a big reaction. No wonder young Master Xia, he is a prodigy. A prodigy like Miss. Speaking of which, Miss Yun is all. How come when he says he graduated from Pudian, it seems so natural? Young Master Xia graduates at 19, and people think he has stopped studying. You people have double standard. You're killing me with laughter. A university but is he really from Pudian's? Now I'm starting to have doubts. Ha ha ha. Countless people turned to look at Yun Mengyao. You knew all of this, which is why you've been so calm. Yun Mengyao touched her nose. She nodded. Countless people wanted to ask, but Tan Yueson suddenly slapped his forehead and looked. I remember who you are now. Ruan Chuming's face went pale, but the color returned. This was something he didn't expect. But he also didn't want anyone to question his. While he was thinking this, the next sentence from Tan Yueson was heard. Are you the one whose thesis was rejected and graduated a year late? This is the senior I told you about. He finished his undergrad. He kept up with that lucky girl without falling behind at all. He sounded so proud as everyone in the banquet hall couldn't. Oh no, I don't like this. Rejected 17 times. Even with Prudence's difficulty, it shouldn't come to. No wonder Mr. Tan only remembers Master Xia. 17 thesis rejections. Graduating a year late. I wouldn't want to remember that student. Why is all your attention on Master Ruan? Am I the only one who thinks Master Xia is finishing a bachelor's, master's, and and excelling at the Guqin? These are things I wouldn't even dare to. The flood of mockery and gossip seemed to drown Ruan Chuming. At this moment, even though he graduated a year late, he still got his degree. And considering how hard, he wasn't the only one who delayed graduation. So he never saw it as a big deal. He even took pride in graduating from Prudent. But now, it has turned into a joke. Wu Shuman turned to her daughter again, asking the question she couldn't ask earlier. Did you and Xiaoyan meet at Prudence? Yun Mengyao nodded. Wu Shuman continued. Did you like him back then? Yun Mengyao blushed and glanced, her eyes filled with tender affection. The harmonious laughter of the Yun and Xia family. Ever since my academic background was, the faces of the wealthy young men haven't looked good. After being embarrassed twice, they seemed to run out of ideas. Ruan Chuming, in particular, looked utterly, his entire demeanor listless. While I was catching up with Tanyuasen, He Chaoxiong walked towards Ruan. He comforted Master Ruan, saying, "No, you established Shuang on your own ability without relying on your and made a name for yourself in the field of artificial intelligence. That's something many people envy." Hearing this, a spark of light returned to Ruan Chuming's. He regained his composure and turned to me. Master Xia, since you've where were you working before this? Xia Qingning and the others' faces immediately darkened again. Meanwhile, Yun Mengyao and Xi looked at him as if he were a fool. Ruan Chuming, proud of my silence, suddenly heard a gentle, clear voice behind him. Excuse me. Ruan Chuming instinctively stepped aside. Seeing the approaching woman, he immediately straightened up. Miss Shen, why are you? Shen Bingbing paused, politely replying, I'm here to deliver something to my. Ruan Chuming immediately brightened. Your CEO? Where? He Chaoxiong, standing nearby, asked in confusion, which company's CEO could make you so excited? Of course, it's the leader in artificial intelligence, U technology. Ruan Chuming, aware that Yu's CEO spoke with I've always wanted to introduce Yu's AI to my business and have scheduled multiple meetings, but the CEO is always so busy. I never expected them to attend. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone at the scene widened their eyes, looking around eagerly. The CEO of U technology, that dominated most global, was present here? That CEO, so mysterious that not even one photo exists. Rumor has it the CEO is very young. Yang Miaoyun also looked outside. He knew about you, but its headquarters are located overseas. He knew about you, but its headquarters are overseas. He didn't know you CEO either, so he hadn't invited them. But if his son had invited them, why hadn't anyone shown up? Shen Bingbing smiled and walked toward me. Mr. Liu, the paperwork for the Imperial once you sign, you can officially be established. As soon as she finished, everyone at the scene froze in shock. Shanana stiffly turned her head, her gaze filled with disbelief as she looked. Xia Qingning's reaction wasn't but her worldview had clearly been shaken. Thinking about her actions of giving me, she so embarrassed she wished she could disappear. No wonder her brother had said he didn't need money. She thought he was just being polite. Mr. and Mrs. Wu Shu turned to look at Yun Mengyao in unison. Their expressions seemed to say, what kind of incredible luck did you stumble? Completely ignoring that their daughter was exceptional in her. Xia Wanyan, having already known my identity before, remained as calm as Yun Mengyao. Unlike the pure astonishment of the Yun and Xia, the expressions on the faces of the other wealthy young masters were. Meanwhile, Ruan Chuming looked as if he were trapped in a nightmare, unconsciously stepping backward. He even shook his head, muttering. As the others regained their senses, the room erupted once. Did I see that right? The CEO of you is Master Xi, and he's really this young. How is this even possible? Does he not leave any chance for others to come? Ruan Chuming clenched his fists tight, his lips nearly bleeding from bite. He finally understood where my came from. The ridiculous. He thought he could win in the business world, only to find himself in another humiliating and completely losing any chance to collaborate. Xia Qingning glanced at Zhang Ying standing nearby. Got it? Zhang Ying nodded. Xia Qingning sneered as he looked at the young master. Go, he commanded. Zhang Ying immediately led a group of people. Every young master who had mocked me was grabbed and dragged out. What are you doing? Let me go, they shouted amidst the commotion. Every mocking young master was thrown out. Xia Qingning clapped his hands and smiled at the remaining crowd. Now that the trash is clear, let's continue the kicking out. Half the young masters of the elite circle and calling them trash. Only Xia Qingning could do such a thing. None of their parents dared to say a word. They were even worried, wondering if their families would be targeted. Others, on the other hand, We're grateful. With this precedent set, and me now having no flaws to criticize, the rest of the went on without any hiccup. As the banquet ended, and the guests began to, Sulinyan walked up to me. Can we talk? Yun Mengyao's expression, Xiaowanian shot him a glance. Not kicking you out earlier. How dare you come over now? Xia's mother and the others looked at Xiaowanian in confusion. Xiaowanian didn't respond to her mother, but stared at Sulinyan instead, saying, Leave now. Sulinyan didn't move, his eyes fixed on me. I have something to say to you. I interrupted him. Let's go. You have 5 minutes. Yun Mengyao grabbed my wrist. I gently reassured her by passing on some warmth. Don't worry, I'll be back when we're done. When I went to a rockery with Sulinyan, I looked at Sulinyan and asked directly, What do you want to say? Sulinyan looked at me. You don't seem surprised to see me here. Have you been keeping track of my movements? I glanced at my watch. You have 4. Sulinyan hesitated slightly. I'm starting to believe in your talk about, but I don't understand. We used to have such deep feelings. Why do you suddenly hate me so much? I didn't answer his question. Instead, I leaned against the rockery. Sumingwee's death? Was it your doing? Sulinyan squinted his eye. Trying to get something out of me? You want me dead? I shook my index finger. No one ever told you? The best way to take revenge on isn't to kill them in one, but to let them never get what they truly desire. Or let them get it, only to lose. After all, the feeling of falling from is much more devastating than never having touched heaven at all. Sulinyan's expression turned. Are you planning to use your allies to go against? I sneered. You've known me for so long. Do I look like someone who relies on others? Hearing my words, Sulinyan regained his earlier composure. Although AU is a leading company in the industry, it has no overlap with the Su family's business. How do you plan to defeat me? Even if you wanted to acquire your liquid capital at A, isn't enough to buy the entire Su group, right? I chuckled, as if mocking his naivety. Acquisition? That's just to help you Do you think I'm stupid? As for how I'll deal with the Su, just wait and see. Your 5 minutes are up. Take care. After saying that, I no longer paid attention and turned to leave. On the way back, my steps felt much more mechanical. When Yun Mengyao saw me walking toward her, she immediately stepped forward. I opened my arms and hugged her tightly. I'm back. Yun Mengyao softly responded in my embrace. Sha Qingning's eyes were filled with intent. What about that guy? He's gone. Little brother, how do you want him to die? Sliced or minced? Second sister stepped, and after what just happened, Sha Qingning managed to learn about the grudge between me and Sulinyan. Now she was completely furious. If no one stopped her, she might have already gone to take Sulinyan. And said to Sha Qingning, trash like that isn't worth dirtying your. I'll handle him myself. A bloodthirsty gleam flashed in Sha Qingning's eye. Second sister isn't joking with you. Even though she's back in the Su family, it's still easy for me to make her disappear. My tone also turned serious. I'm not joking with you either. This is a grudge between me and her. I want to settle it personally. But that doesn't mean I can't use some outside help. I said, turning my head to look at Xiaowanian. Does the Xia family own an entertainment company? Xiaowanian nodded. Yes, there's one, but that's only because third sister impulsively wanted and started it with her friends. Xia Qingning laughed and interjected. She only stayed in the crew for 3 days, then ran away because there were too many mosquitoes. Oh, by the way, Xiao Xiao is your third. She's out there doing photography now. I didn't tell her we found you. Xiaowanian glared at Xia Qingning then continued. Because Xiao Xiao gave up on being an artist, we haven't really managed that company. Right now, there are only 2 managers there overseeing. It's called an entertainment, but it's really just a studio with very few artists. But why are you asking about this little? I thought to no wonder I've only met 2 sisters so far. What I wanted to say was, big sister, could you hand Xingche? She laughed and looked at me. I nodded. That's right. The Su family's business mainly revolves. I want to use Xingche to compete against Su's. If you trust me, big sister, you can let me take over Xingche. Give me a studio, and I'll return it as the strongest star factory. Xiaowanian glanced at me. That's nonsense. Why wouldn't I trust you? But you already have AU to man. Adding an entertainment company on top, can your body handle it? Besides, you heard what I just said. Xingche is almost like an empty shell. While Tianyu controls nearly half of the entertainment, if Sulinyan finds out you've taken over, he'll surely figure out your intention. By then, he'll definitely cause trouble. It's not that I doubt your ability, but you've never dealt with the entertainment. The Su family controls most of its resources. If they want to suppress, Xingche practically has no room to survive. I smiled. AU is already very mature now. And Shen Bingbing is capable enough to. I'll appoint her as acting president. Except for a few major decisions, she'll handle most of the affairs. As for managing the entertainment company, I know my limits. Don't worry, big sister. In my previous life, I built most of Tianyu. Theoretically, there's no one more familiar with the entertainment industry than me. Moreover, I know Tianyu's internal affairs, like the back, even if it's challenging, it's only a matter of time before I bring them down. Shen Bingbing, hearing this, felt a mix of surprise but recalling her previous life, she tried her best to maintain a composed, I can't embarrass my CEO. After I mentioned that to focus on managing the entertainment company, young Miaoyan sensed something was off. Xiaoyan, is there really only this grudge between you and the Su families? Was it just being you? Your feelings shouldn't have escalated to the point of wanting to bankrupt them, right? Xia Qingning instantly got furious again. Only this? Just this makes me want to tear him to pieces. Bankrupting him would be letting him off easy. I couldn't explain the matters of past, so I just smiled and said, maybe I'm like second. I hold grudges too. Wu Shuman lightly tapped Yun Mengyao's head. How could you be so You've known Xiaoyan since school days, and you still let someone else get ahead. Yun Mengyao said nothing, but my heart ached. How could it be her fault? Yun Mengyao was such a proud person, yet she had lowered herself countless times. It was just that, in my past life, my heart, and I never gave her any response at all. Thinking of this, I raised my hand to hold Yun. I looked at Aunt Wu and said, it's my fault for being blind before, for failing to recognize Mengyao's, but that won't happen anymore. Wu Shuman looked at Yun Mengyao with smiling. See how much Xiaoyan, he won't even let his own mom take good care of Xiaoyan from, okay? Yun Mengyao tightly held my hand. I don't, Wu Shuman yawned. All right, it's getting late. We should head back, she added. Xiaoyan, do you want to come Xia Qingning pulled me protectively. No, thank you, Auntie. It's so late already. My little brother needs to sleep. Yun Mengyao hesitated, reluctant to let go of my. She knew it was my first day, so I should stay at the Xia. But ever since we got together, we hadn't been apart at night. Suddenly being alone, staying alone in an empty room. Still, you laughed, watching Yun Mengyao with shock. The frustration from the past days seemed to dissipate in an instant. Miss Yun, didn't you hear? My little brother needs to. Even though Yun Mengyao was reluctant, at that moment, I quickly leaned close to his ear and whispered a sentence. Yun Mengyao's eyes lit up instantly. She lowered her gaze and suppressed her emotion. Our little interaction happened in the blink. None of the people present noticed it. Mom Xia smiled and nodded. Shen Bingbing followed suit. The next morning, after breakfast, I drove alone to Xinxia Entertainment. After passing through I was about to head to the designated meeting room. I ran into someone head-on. Chen Jing, upon seeing my handsome face, was momentarily stunned. I also subtly observed the girl before me. Chen Jing. I silently mouthed her name in my heart. Judging by the timeline, she should still be in a second-tier position. In my previous life, when I came to the capital with Sulin, she had already switched to Tianyu. So before going to Tianyu, she was with Xinche? I noticed her expression was a bit odd, so I instinctively asked, are you okay? Chen Jing put her hand over her pounding chest. My heart seems a little, I frowned. Is she trying to play the victim? Clearly, she was walking perfectly fine. She bumped into me first. Thinking this, I reached out and grabbed her, lightly diagnosing her through touch. Chen Jing stared blankly at her hand being held, the area touched, feeling like an electric shock, tingling and numb. Before she could recover, the warmth on her wrist had already disappeared. I looked at her and said, your body seems fine. After speaking, I didn't wait. I turned and walked straight. My manager Ding Lei approached. Go back to the village to get some. Why are you standing here and what happened to your hand? Chen Jing held the hand I had just checked. Sister Ding, I think it's love at first sight. On the other side, I arrived at the desert. As soon as I pushed, I saw a man and a woman sitting calmly on either side of the. Before coming here, I had done some homework. I knew these two people. One was, and the other was Kai. They held the positions of director and manager. Both of them were not very old. When they saw me, and Shufeng and Kaimin exchanged a glance. Hello, we will fully cooperate and support your work, they said. It was clear that they had been informed in it. Then Shufeng spoke. President Liu, to be honest, we currently only have one artist worth mentioning, but now even he is about to. I glanced at the two of them. Are you talking? Kaimin looked at me in surprise. President, I didn't answer her question. Instead, I fell into deep thought. I knew Chen Jing would eventually switch to. I just didn't expect it to happen. So Shufeng spoke again at this point. We're incapable of keeping him. Why don't you give it a try, President? Although it was just a simple suggestion, I could tell. Shufeng wanted to test my ability through this. If I couldn't keep, it wouldn't change the fact that I was taking over Xinche, but it wouldn't be easy to gain his complete. Thinking of this, I tapped my. Bring me his file first, then have him meet me alone. Kai Min, not catching Shufeng, stood up after hearing my instructions. 10 minutes later, I had just reached the when I heard it. Without lifting my head, I said, come in. Chen Jing entered reluctantly, obviously disinterested, since he was already planning. To him, anything related to was of little interest. not interested at all. He also knew they wanted to keep, and with this delay, he might even miss that handsome guy who made his heart race. But upon hearing that voice, he instantly thought of that handsome face, full of confusion. Chen Jing, with his heart racing irregularly, slowly opened the conference room. The moment he saw me, Chen Jing seemed frozen in place. It wasn't until I curiously raised that he finally moved his stiff legs toward. "You're the new president of Xinche." I glanced at his chest with amusement. "Still feeling okay now?" In an instant, it brought me back to the moment with a joking remark, I brushed off the pat. But Chen Jing seemed to be struck by Cupid's arrow again, his heart racing as if it would jump. I had no idea about the storm raging in Chen Jing's heart. I gestured for him to sit down and spoke in a businesslike tone. "People aim higher. Your contract has and your career is on a good trajectory. It's perfectly normal to want to switch to a—" But before I could Chen Jing interrupted me. "I'm not leaving." I was stunned. Chen Jing repeated himself. "I want to renew my contract with Xinche." I looked at him in confusion. "Why? Do you know that feeling? It's like preparing all drafts and negotiation strategy only to find out none of them are needed." For the first time in my life, I felt baffled. Chen Jing didn't directly answer my question. Instead, he asked me, "Do presidents exploit female artists?" My face instantly turned serious. "Don't worry about that. I swear on my character that I will never stoop to such tactics." Chen Jing gave a disappointed, "Oh, who do I talk to about renewing?" I couldn't shake off a strange feeling. Was it just my— It seemed like after I said I wouldn't exploit art, he actually looked a bit disappointed. His expression made a not-so-good thought sprout in my mind. "You still haven't answered. Why did you suddenly decide to stay?" Afraid of scaring me off? He made up an excuse. "Xinche was founded by me and my best. Even though she abandoned me, after thinking it over, I decided I couldn't abandon Xin." The corner of my mouth twitched. "Your best friend?" Chen Jing was stunned. "You know her?" he asked. I thought to myself, "She's my third sister." Chen Jing didn't dwell on it. "Someone sent from headquarters to be president. Knowing people from the company. So who do I talk to about renewing my contract?" "Talk to Director Xu." Outside the conference room, Xu Feng watched as Chen Jing, who came out. His heart instantly sank. Kai Min also assumed it was almost— She even told Xu Feng, "President Liu is new to— It's normal to fail on the first try. Besides, we couldn't keep him either." Xu Feng's expression didn't improve at all. Ding Lei, waiting nearby, waved at Chen Jing. "Tianyu has sent someone to pick you up." But the next moment, Chen Jing walked over to Xu Feng and stood still. "I want to renew my contract." Xu Feng thought he had misheard. "What did you—" After renewing his contract, Chen Jing, he took out his phone and sent a message to Xia Xiao. Then followed up with, "If you're alive." He sent several messages but got no reply. Chen Jing didn't mind. Biting the corner of a cushion, he freed his hands to type, "I'm not going to— I want to stay at Xinche." Not long after sending the message, he received a video call from the other. "Why did you suddenly decide to stay?" "Don't overthink it. I'm the one who told you to— My elder sister doesn't care about new cars. She doesn't plan to expand into the entertainment. Why are you earning money for him? There will definitely be security in resource." This is Chen Jing. "She doesn't care if he replies. That's the reason. Good friends might ignore you, but they will definitely think from your perspective." Chen Jing stared at Xia Xiao's face through the— Suddenly, she felt a bit of resentment. She wondered if she was overthinking. Now everyone seems to look like— I've fallen for a guy. He's the new CEO who was parachuted in to I stayed for him." Xia Xiao responded quickly, "I'm busy." She hung up after saying goodbye. Tianyu's CEO office. After hearing the report from Su Lingyan's, Su Jie laughed uncontrollably. This so-called revenge is using Xinche Entertainment to— Does this person have a donkey-kicked brain? Xinche against Tianyu is like an egg hitting a— Moreover, Xinche currently has only one artist worth, and they're about to jump ship to Tianyu. Xinche is an empty shell. How can it— With Tianyu, which dominates half of the Just as he finished, the office door was knocked. After getting permission, the HR manager walked in nervously. "Mr. Su, Chen Jing wants to renew her She's not coming to Fine if she's not," Sujay said dismissively. "A second-rate artist really thinks she's a big deal. If Tianyu makes a move, does she think she can still serve?" Su Lingyan's face also turned cold. She manually checked Chen Jing's recently announced. She tapped her fingers lightly on the desk. "Call Kijang over." Not long after, a handsome male star walked in. "Mr. Su, you called me?" Su Lingyan looked up at him briefly. "I have a task for you. Tell the director to kick Chen Jing." Ke Jiang was, but didn't ask for. Chen Jing had no idea she was being set up. After renewing her contract, she rushed to the out. Meanwhile, I was familiarizing myself with making a few adjustments. However, before I could finish, Kai Min came rushing in nervously. "Mr. Liu, there's trouble with Chen Jing." I paused my work. "What happened?" Kai Min quickly replied, "It's Chen Jing. She was supposed to join an outdoor variety show, but as soon as she arrived, the director told her she wasn't needed. In short, she's been kicked out." My expression turned cold. I'll go. Soon we arrived at the scene. As I got out of, I saw Ding Lei arguing with the director. Meanwhile, Chen Jing sat under a makeshift outdoor lowering her. As I walked forward, Chen Jing seemed to sense my. She froze for a moment, put down her walk, and stood up to approach me. Mr. Liu, why are you here? I glanced at the celebrity, focusing on the director, and then on Cage. What exactly is going on? Chen Jing ran her hand, her tone indifferent. It's nothing serious. This is just how the favoring the high and I expected this. Signing with would inevitably bring suppression. But the program team is at fault here. Even if I can't record, I'll still get compensated for the loss. Not a loss. Looking at the girl, comforting herself, I couldn't help but feel uneasy. You wait here for now. I'll take care of this. Chen Jing clapped her hands and grabbed. No need, she said, but as I looked down at her, she quickly let go as if shocked. The director glanced at me, and a flicker of admiration flashed in his eyes. Which company are you with? Kai Min, walking beside me, froze. He glanced at our company's president. At first, he was biased against me due to connect, but later he was awed by my aura and identity. He hadn't realized even our president could rely on his look. Zheng also noticed my appearance and immediately grew wary. I stared coldly at the director and, I'm not an artist. I'm the president of Shinsha Entertainment. I'd like to ask, what mistake did for you to cancel the contract at the last? Hearing me call her my artist, Chen Jing blushed. Although she knew I said it casually, a trace of sweetness still filled her. Zheng relaxed slightly upon hearing. Due to his disdain for Shinsha, he also looked down on my position. Under the director's pleading gaze, he folded his arms and stepped. He sneered at me and said, little brother, you're new here. In the entertainment industry, some things don't need. With my current status, kicking out a second tier is just a matter of one sentence. I narrowed my eyes slightly. You don't seem worried at all that someone might record you. Making bold claims in public like this leaves only two possibilities. Either you're stupid or you have backing. If it's the former, you wouldn't have made it to your current level anyway. Kejing smirked, as if hearing a joke. His assistant also laughed recklessly. Didn't you check before coming here? Our brother Zheng's backing is the top brass. His second sister is even the leader of Xiamen. You know Xiamen, right? Do you dare provoke the boyfriend of Xiamen's lead? Are you tired of living? I was speechless. I figured he had some backing, but I didn't expect that person to be seconds. It's one thing if he doesn't know I'm the young, but does he also not know Shin belongs to Xia Corporate? Fine. Shinsha Entertainment is at the bottom of maybe not many people can associate it with the massive after all, I only found in my past life after Shinsha went bankrupt. Kai Min was also at a loss, but since I didn't, he held back for now. Kejeng saw my silence and assumed I was scared. His attitude became even more. So did you record that earlier? He motioned to his assistant, who stepped toward me with a threat. Kai Min decided not to stay. Just as he was about to reveal I caught a glimpse of Xia Qing leading a group of people approaching.